Good morning. Welcome to the August 9th meeting of the Planning Commission. If you would all please stand and salute the flag with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Could we do a roll call, please? Present. Present, yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Here.
Commissioner Sevison?
Here.
Commissioner Denayo?
Here.
Commissioner Bretnall?
Is absent.
Commissioner Rakucci?
Here.
And Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Thank you. Report from our planning director, Mr. Johnson.
Good morning. Just a brief update on your upcoming agenda. As the Commission is aware, your August 23rd meeting has been canceled, and we have scheduled a special meeting on August 30th that will be held up at Tahoe at Grand Labakan. The items that will be on that agenda at this time are a new chairlift replacement up at Alpine Meadows, the Homewood Villas. This is a minor subdivision in the Homewood area. The Dollar Hill Transportation Route, this is a general plan amendment to allow for a new trail in the North Tahoe area. We will have the public hearing on the draft EIR for the Cabin Creek Biomass Facility. Staff will also provide an update on the Tahoe Basin community plans that are currently being updated. And staff will also provide an update and an overview of the Village at Squaw Valley specific plan that has been submitted for review by the county. Once again, that will be a special meeting at Grand Labakan on August 30th. Any questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's time where if anybody would like to make a public comment on items that are not on today's agenda, you're welcome to come up and do so. Seeing none. Looks like we've gone a little too fast and probably need to kill a couple of minutes before we do our 10:05.
Oh, I'll help you with that. Just to give you an update, the ad hoc versus county case, this the Timberline at Auburn project, is going to trial on Monday. So with any luck, I don't know if the judge, we have a visiting judge who's going to be hearing this. I don't know whether he'll rule at that time or take it under submission, but with any luck, come on the 30th, we'll have an update for you on the outcome of the trial.
Excellent.
What was that for?
Timberline. Right up here across the street.
What happened to the what happened to the commercial site, the old lumber yard? Is that still moving forward? Do we know? Bohemia?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Bohemia, the old lumber yard?
Yes, that is on appeal. The Court of Appeals apparently has become backlogged. The case has been fully briefed for at least 6 to 8 months. We recently contacted the clerk of the court to ask when we might have oral argument, and that's still pending. We do think we reminded the court it's a CEQA case. They are given preferential treatment at the Court of Appeal, and we believe that might spur on an actual oral argument date, but as of yet, we're still waiting.
Thank you.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nicely done. Okay. The amendment to the Auburn Bowman Community Plan and rezone and conditional use permit for the Headquarter RV Park. Melanie?
Good morning. The applicant is requesting, I'm sorry, let me get on the right page here. The applicant is requesting the approval of a conditional use permit to allow for the establishment of a 51-unit recreational vehicle park with a general store and a manager's unit on a 5-acre portion of an approximately 30-acre parcel. property. The applicant also requests that the Planning Commission consider providing a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for the approval of an amendment to the Auburn Bowman Community Plan to reconfigure the existing commercial and open space land use designations, a rezone to reconfigure the C1 UPDC and open space zoning to change this and to change the C1 UPDC to C2 UPDC, essentially a change from neighborhood commercial to general commercial. The subject property is the site of the Dingus McGee's restaurant and the Raspberry Hill Golf Course. The property consists of rolling terrain, golf course greens, and man-made ponds, and natural vegetation, including oak woodlands, which are located in patches throughout the site. The property is bounded by Interstate 80, the Union Pacific Railroad, and open space and residential uses. The RV park would operate on a year-round basis, and a manager's unit would be constructed as a part of the project to provide housing for a 24-hour manager to live on site. The applicant also proposes to construct a general store on the property, and there would also be a restroom to accommodate the guests of the site. Typical customers of the park would be people traveling on Interstate 80, and that they would use the site for overnight stays. And the park would be open 24 hours a day. And then the intent of the recreational vehicle park is to provide short-term accommodations. So there would be a limitation of 180 days for a stay, and then at the time that the guests vacated, they wouldn't be able to return for another 30 days following that departure. The existing zoning on the property site is C1 UPDC and open space. And then the applicant would like to change that C1 UPDC commercial zoning into C2 UPDC. And the change basically is a little bit more intensive with the general commercial zoning, but it will allow for the RV park on those portions of the property. And so what the applicant is proposing to do is basically you have these two nodes here that are currently zoned commercial, and then the remainder is all open space area. And the general plan coordinates with that, with also commercial designations and then open space. So the applicant would like to modify that so that and I should note that there's no net increase in the commercial zoning here. So what he's basically doing is reconfiguring it so that the area that's already developed with commercial area, it remains commercial. And then the remainder of what was in those two nodes will be in this area here, reconfigured to overlay the recreational vehicle park. And then, like I said, there will just be that modification to the general commercial zoning. So there was a traffic impact analysis done on the property, and it came to the conclusion that while there will be a minor increase in traffic, it wasn't enough to call for anything other than traffic fees for a mitigation measure. And then these are just photos of the project site off of Interstate 80. Here, this is where you would be looking to the east. So with that, I'd like to state that staff recommends approval, that the Planning Commission adopt the mitigated negative declaration and approve the conditional use permit for the Headquarter recreational vehicle park, and forward a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for an approval of an amendment to the Auburn Bowman Community Plan as depicted in Attachment F of the staff report, and the rezone as depicted in Attachment D, based on the findings and the recommended conditions of approval included in the staff report packet. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions?
Just for clarification, I think I already know the answer, because I heard it, but you just sort of went through it real quick. On the zoning change from commercial to C2, the only reason for that, because that's the only, C2 is the only one that allows RV park.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that it's not, because I think somebody might assume that they're changing it, put the RV park in, and then put some heavier commercial in or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not happening.
No, it's simply to allow for the RV park.
Only the 180-day stay limit. I mean, that just seems kind of a long time to me, thinking that you pull into a campground as you're driving up Interstate 80 to take a break and you wind up living here for 6 months. Is this standard in others, or are we?
There is no standard to be placed. The applicant wanted to have that allowance for the 180 days. He plans to basically regulate the stays of the RVs on site, and so we just placed that condition, or that limitation on there, so that there wasn't just an arbitrary, people could stay for as long as they wanted, but also not to severely limit the applicant in how long people could stay on the site.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have a question, but kind of a follow-up comment. The 180 days is the one that stuck in my mind too, since this is supposed to be for temporary. And quite frankly, I think most of the comments I think we received, or some of them anyway, was on that issue, because we have some other RV parks in the area that evidently haven't been maintained properly. Permanent parks anyway, not an RV where you're moving around. But so I believe the 30-day limit, similar to what state parks have, if this is really an RV park for transient use on a highway, which is a good location actually, would be more appropriate to alleviate the concerns of some of the other people.
That may be the case. Like I said, we just kind of placed it on there.
I understand.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you, Melanie.
thank you.
Does the applicant, the representative, want to come up and address us?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. My name is Mike Reese, Old Woodside Construction. I'm the owner of the property and also the newly renovated Dingus McGee's restaurant and the in-progress golf course. I think staff's done a very good job of outlining the project for you. I would comment as to the 180 days. The majority of the people that we expect are going to be people going up and down, but it also may be somebody that comes and stays, that they're staying with family, they need a place to stay. It may be during the Western States training. We've had a lot of inquiries from that. They may be there for 30 days, 60 days. I just really don't know. I've put a lot of money and time and effort into kind of renovating that project. I don't know if you guys were familiar with that, what the condition of it was when I ended up taking it back about a year ago. But I can assure you, with the time and money that I've put into that, the last thing I want is a rundown trailer park next to me. And there's certainly valid concerns from the neighbors with respect to the trailer park to the south. That is, I've been in Auburn third generation, and I didn't even know that place existed. And the good news, it's been purchased, and it is in the process of being renovated, from what I understand, which is good for all of us. So I'd like to stay with 180 days, and again, my motivation is to make it a very nice place. And I'd answer any questions that you might have.
Question?
Maybe when you say the 180 days and you're using, say, special events and stuff where maybe it's 30, 60 days maximum, why arbitrarily the 180 days versus that? I mean, even if it was a 30 days, somebody could actually load up their trailer, pull out, drive down into Auburn, come back in, and come in and park. I think the concern for me on that kind of time frame tendency is if the trailer sits there, it does sort of deteriorate
Right.
and really get bad before it has to go, where it doesn't stop. I mean, it's like somebody that's transient traveling can go to a hotel and sign up every other night and stay there year round. but at least they're having to move the trailer, and I think that's probably one of the big concerns of people with that long term, because things can deteriorate in that length of time if it's sitting there. But if they're having to load it up and at least move it, it has to be maintained.
And I agree. I think you have a very valid point. And this, the 180 days was kind of a negotiation between myself and planning, and so we got kind of started on some different different ends, and that's kind of where we came to. I mean, if it's 120 days, and again, the moving, and that's why the moving is fine with me, because that way the stuff doesn't accumulate. And we're also going to have requirements too that we don't want old beat up coaches with a bunch of duct tape holding them together too, even if they stay one night. I mean, it's we've got to try to maintain a certain level of appearance for the property, quite frankly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience like to come up and speak about this? Come on up, please.
My name is Deirdre Conroy. Never been to one of these before, so if I mess up on anything, sorry. I'm a neighbor living on Musso Road, and I'm very concerned about it becoming a trailer park. I'm trying to be open-minded about it, that it could in any way improve the property, but I'm finding that really hard to believe. And 30 days is more than enough for someone to stay for a short-term visit. And I would even prefer that they not be able to drive out and immediately return. It's my understanding that in some RV parks, they have a 7-day minimum to be gone and then return. If they need to be in the area in Auburn for some special event, there's another RV park on Highway 49 that's available to them. They could go there, come back. There's another one that's for sale on Bowman that's in horrible disrepair, which makes me wonder how much we need one when that one is no longer in business. I'm very concerned about right now when you come down 80, it looks nice. You see pine trees. Now, when you look over there, you're going to see RVs. And there's no little trees that can be put out there that's going to hide an RV. They're huge. And it's just going to affect the entire community. The rest of the places out there are, I believe, are minimum 2 acre. So there's a lot of residential. It's rural. We like the space and the openness and not another trailer park. Because the one on the other end of Musso, we're already dealing with one trailer park on Musso. And it is a disaster. We already have people that go to that trailer park, and I don't know if there's drugs over there or what. Then they come down to our end of Musso and sit in their cars. We've had to call the police. I called the police as recently as last week for people coming down there and hanging out. So my concern is that we're going to have more transients, more people hanging out. I'm also concerned about the general store. That with a general store, if that's open to the public, then we're going to have people stopping in for that, which is going to impact the traffic. It's not just the RV people coming in and out, but now we're going to have a store that's going to draw people off the freeway. So it's not neighborhood commercial. I mean, neighborhood commercial would have protected us from that. And to change that totally affects the whole area right there for everybody who lives there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Bryce Roberts. I'm a property owner in the neighborhood back behind the proposed development. And really, this is going to have a horrible impact on the community. I mean, of all things, a trailer park, please. Already we're being blasted by rock music from the concerts that they're playing over there. And I mean, just the thought of turning onto, making the left turn onto Musso Road and seeing this, I mean, it's like the lowest common denominator of development, a trailer park. And there's nobody in the neighborhood that's ready for it, who wants it. And as a former falconer, I would like to say that in this area back in here, there's nesting red-shouldered hawks, and it's a nice area. To the East is the Oast Ranch, which has been set into, it's been taken over by the Placer Land Trust. And then to the south is the State Park recreation area. So, I mean, the whole community is set up in kind of a, kind of a woodsy agricultural zone. And I just, I've lived over there since about 97, and it's just really a great area. If you haven't been over there, you should come check it out. It's really nice. Yeah. So I don't think anybody would really be too happy with this, and it's just going to cause a lot of trouble. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Evan McKinney, and I am nervous. Now I have to take on, and I'm assuming you guys follow Robert's rules. I got a download of the general planning, and on 17.02.010, the title and purpose. Section D indicates protect and preserve the important features of Placer County natural environment and the natural beauty of the area. Now, it's my understanding, since I'm in the process of, with my company, purchasing a building on Richards Boulevard and changing it from a warehouse to an office, zoning does take place. But my also understanding is, once you get that zoning changed, it is very easy to add on to it, and it's easier for the applicant to slide in other information or other buildings at that time. So my main concern is, at this point is, yeah, we have a net no change in commercial versus open space. However, based on ADA guidelines, which I did confirm with one of the planning people, that they're going to be doing a 1.5% to a 10% rise on the roads. So basically, they're going to have to level that out to be ADA compliant. I'm sure the guy that's over in Citrus Heights is going to come over and take a look at it to make sure it is ADA compliant. So I'm concerned that they're basically going to be tearing out the hill structure, and I've already heard they're going to take in at least 20-foot cuts into the dirt. So when you're coming through there, we're going to be seeing, like someone indicated, these massive RVs, as well as defined open space means land subject to valid restrictions against housing or other developments, the maintenance of which is its natural or protected state is necessary for the enhancement of living conditions in Placer County. I'm saying that my life is going to be changed. My peace of mind driving by that, me and my wife already talked that we may potentially have to move because of this. So it's affected me and my family, and I just want to let you guys know that. So there are, I know neighbors concerned about this as well. And I have looked at some of the other general coding, and it does indicate, it's amazing how they use that magic number 51 for the spaces, because I know after you go to 50, from 50 to 1, you have a lot more latitude on things coming on. So there's obviously, this applicant knows how to read the code and put it into his advantage. And I'm also looking at setbacks, and I have asked for a higher resolution of the map because it hasn't been given to me yet. I'm seeing that the setback requirement is 30 feet from the roads, but based on the mapping that I've seen, I cannot verify that 30 feet has been met. Along with screening is required, as in section B on, again, this is in section 17.56.8080, camping and campgrounds, recreational vehicle parks. So I haven't seen any screening taking place in here. I hear that they're going to remove some trees and put some other ones in there, but how are they going to screen these campsites? I mean, are they going to have 20 to 30 foot trees in order to maintain that screening requirement as in section B? So I'd like to hear about that as well. And I have also asked for a forest management plan to get something taken place on this as well. So I think that hits my main areas is just how it's affecting me and my life and my family, and I do believe it's a detriment. And as someone indicated on Bowman Road, I've seen that RV park go from running to dismal, and and I think that if the applicant wanted to set up a place, he could set it up there and purchase that. It may not have the same requirements as far as how many number of RV parking places, but that is something that, I'd be interested in as well. And again, you are changing the planning of the community by changing zones, and that's going to be on your guys' self. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Ron Conroy. I agree with everything else they're saying. You go look at it. If you guys have never been out there, I'm sure you've been to Dingus McGee's. It's a great restaurant. There's a ton of people there right now. But he's going to basically level that whole thing. Hole 6 is on a hill. That'll be leveled. Everything will be leveled, and it'll be a big parking lot again. So it's part of the Bowman community plan back in 1993 that they didn't want this to happen, what's happened to Lincoln, the Forest Hill exit. So I can see it going from rural now to being what it's going to be on Lincoln, where the Rayleighs is. I mean, I think there's a bigger agenda here, not only for the RV park, but what's going to happen with that other, I think it's 6 holes to the north. So if he gets his plan in place, then it's like he was saying before, it's easier for them to change the zoning on those other 6 holes and put in a strip mall, gas station, Quick Mart, whatever it may be. That's going to happen. Another question I have is, how are you going to fit 4 holes on the other side where there's 6 holes right now to make it a 9-hole course? It's pretty much impossible. So I'd like to see that as well. I'm very nervous. The urban impact, there will be an urban impact on this. But the biggest thing is leveling it and making it a parking lot, basically. And then just what's going to happen to the other part. It's just going to keep going and going. I mean, there's small commercial now, but it could be a lot of things in the future, and I think that's what he's looking at. He's not looking at an RV park. He's looking at more to do with that. And that's about it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Dawn McKinney, and I'm a resident back behind where the proposed development is. There are only 19 homeowners back where we are, so that's why there's not hundreds or thousands of people speaking up against this, because we just don't have that sheer number. Like my husband said, it's going to impact our family quality of life, and the staff report said, one of the items said that, quote, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of proposed uses will not, under the circumstances of the particular case, be detrimental to the health, safety, peace, comfort, and general welfare of people residing or working in the neighborhood of proposed use. Well, I am, and people who spoke were proof that that is an untrue statement. This is going to impact my way of life because this is urban development encroaching on my rural neighborhood. My daughter's 9 years old, and she just had a couple of things that she wanted to add. Tell them how long you've lived here.
I've lived here all my life.
Why do you like living here?
Because of how many trees there are and all the wildlife and the open space and the peace and quietness around this area.
And what are you worried about if there is an RV park that gets built?
Losing trees, noise at night, and air pollution.
Thank you. I'm going to continue on from here. That is one of our concerns on both on page 6 and page 40 of the staff report, is that the proposed project would result in removing 69 out of 151 oak trees that are protected by the Placer County Tree Ordinance. And although there's mitigations in place for that, there's no way that those types of mitigations can replace, an old growth oak tree in an oak woodland habitat. And my other question, I'm concerned about a potential increase in crime and the funding that would, need to take place from the county to cover that. I did check with the Placer County Revenue Services Department and verified that Placer County does not charge transient and occupancy taxes for RV users. So here people can stay up to a half a year and not pay their fair share of taxes that will go towards the county services that they'll be using, services like our roads, like fire protection, law enforcement. And I just don't understand how that's a good fiscal decision for our county to be making in a time of, you know, I work through the Placer County Office of Education, and we're getting cuts and cuts and cuts. Like, how would this be a good decision? And also, when there's an abandoned RV park located, it's just a little bit over a mile away on Bowman Road. To me, a logical conclusion would be that there's not a great need for this type of service in our community. And one final comment that I'd like to make is that on page 6 of the staff report, this area is considered a scenic highway corridor. It also states that, quote, recreational vehicles parked on the site may be visible, quote. I just don't think the mitigations that, as they're identified in the staff report, are adequate to overcome the degradation of the scenic oak woodland and the open space that the project would cause. And if you would go out and drive by Dingus McGee's, that current commercial development, they had landscape improvements out there. They've been very poorly maintained. The areas are overgrown with weeds, and lots of areas of that open space have been allowed to get browned, and they're actually just parking cars out there when they have their concerts and stuff. And the ambient noise, which on page 62 of the staff report, it said it would not generate a substantial permanent increase in ambient noise, but right now the existing commercial venue, Dingus McGee's, has significantly increased. We have music well into the evening, past 10 p.m., throughout the days on Saturdays and Sundays. So I would imagine adding 51 people in a high-density space right there, it is going to increase that ambient noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, that will close off the public comment. Would the applicant like to come up and address any of this?
Yeah, there were quite a number of statements that weren't correct, but I guess I would just, if there's any questions that the council or commission had, I'd be glad to address those. If there's anything, if you have any proposed different ideas, if you want to talk about those, I'd be open to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners.
I'd like to have staff maybe respond to some of the issues that were brought up. One's mainly RV versus trailer park, which I think is a big difference, and I understand the concerns there. Also want to modify what I said before. Most state parks and most county parks that I go to, especially over on the coast, have a 10-day requirement, a 30-day maximum yearly stay. So that's how our RV parks and national parks are also 7 days, like Grand Canyon, Yosemite, what have you. So if we're talking about RV parks here, we're going to have to talk about length of stay, and it is going to be for transit, not permanent people. Because I do share the concerns. We have some in Roseville that are permanent. Some are maintained and some aren't. But I think there's a big difference between an RV park and a trailer park. And those are the major concerns that I heard here today, along with some of the grading and noise and what have you.
You're correct on as far as the difference between the recreational vehicles and then the mobile home. Mobile homes will not be allowed. Recreational vehicles are mobile vehicles, so these are, they're meant to drive in and drive out, and that's what will be happening, and that's also kind of the purpose of the 180-day limitation, so that they will have to remove those vehicles in that time frame. As far as the other limitations for the 30 days, it would probably, it would increase the turnover for sure. But we also have that limitation that they cannot return for 30 days. So it's 180 days max, and then they have to leave for 30 days.
The RV park that was mentioned up on Highway 49, I actually was going to have a small trailer. I was going to go there one day, so save on gas rather than going to the coast. I never have been there, but I walked around the area now. Do you know if they have a 30-day or restriction or how they operate their park?
I understand that park has actually been abandoned and was for sale. I understand that they had
The one off of 49?
the one off of, oh, I'm sorry, no, I was thinking the one off of
The one
Bowman.
off of 49 up near Education Street. Anyway, I don't know the road that goes up there to the right if you're going north. It's back up in there a little ways, so you don't see it from 49, but
I'm not familiar with that park.
it's well maintained and everything. I'm just wondering how they operate as far as an RV park, because it looked like it was mainly RVs, not a permanent installations. Okay.
Comments?
One of the questions that came up was coming back before you and altering what could be done with this RV park or adding on, maybe just explain to all of us, that this is the project that's before us and it's not, there isn't any underlying stuff that, and for my understanding for the size of existing commercial and stuff, once this is on, that's the only thing that can be there. The open space and all the other stuff is still open space.
That's absolutely correct. This project will allow for the reconfiguration of the zoning and then that modification to the heavier or the general commercial zoning. But this is also with the approval of the conditional use permit, and the conditional use permit allows for that recreational vehicle park. And the recreational vehicle park, along with the existing restaurant, pretty much absorbs all of the commercial zoning. There's nothing left for any other development on the property. And so it will just simply be the recreational vehicle park and no ability to actually put anything else in there.
And then there was the issue of cut and fields, and I see there's some there, but from a grading standpoint, how much on site will there be? I mean, what is the visual impact?
The estimated acres of disturbance will be 3.5 acres, and we did anticipate up to 20 feet of cuts and fills on the site. In the middle of the site, there's kind of a hill where they're going to be leveling it out and creating the pads and the roadway.
And as far as aesthetics are concerned, we do have a condition for design review. And so we also have some discussion of putting screening along the side of the road. So a lot of that should be, a lot of the recreational vehicle park will be screened, and that will be developed as part of the design review agreement. So a lot of that, like the grading and then the recreational vehicles, will be screened from I-80.
I think I would like to, have a discussion that 180 days seems a long time to be staying in an RV park. To me, I mean, well, it's, the 180 days, I think, is something that's up for discussion. Would also like to discuss maybe adding some kind of condition that everything that is parked there is maintained in a roadable condition, currently registered, currently insured, so when it's time for them to go, they're capable of doing so. Your thoughts?
I think perhaps we could adjust the time period to satisfy some of the people a little bit. That would help. And also the idea of maintaining it in a manner that will allow for it to leave the property in a acceptable time would also be good to me.
I have a question, staff.
Yeah, I have one question of staff. Now, we're changing zoning from one commercial to another. Can the applicant, let's say tomorrow, come in and put something in that new zoning without coming back? Because we're going to, why not? If it's owned property, if it's.
Maybe I'll just chime in here. This zoning that we're changing it to, as well as the existing, has a unique designation on it. It has a combining UP designation, which means that everything in the C2 zoning district requires a discretionary review and approval by the planning commission. So there's no other use that can go in there as a matter of right. It has to come back before the approving authority, the planning commission. So it's rather unique, and there's this extra requirement for a use permit for all uses on the property.
Okay.
I guess I have a question of Public Works. It looks like, and I'm not sure what the reason for it was, but I'm sure it was for convenience maybe, but they took the road right through the center of a grove of trees that seemed like would be worth trying to save. There, it's, if you look on the white map, this one, all the X's for the trees being removed are in a big cluster, and it looks like a lot of those could be saved by some revision to the layout, perhaps, because I think that's going to be one of the tests of this project, is how visible it's going to be, and if the more trees you take out, the more visible it's going to be. And it seems to me that a fair number of those trees could be saved even by relocating a couple of units and doing some different things that would, I think, make a much better project out of this and make it less visible. I think that would be comment number one. Comment number two is there's a tree planting area. It looks like it's along the north side of the group of units coming in. I sort of think those trees should get established and provide the blockage before they are allowed to use those sites along that side of the road, because they're going to be extremely standy-outy. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'll just make the comment that I share the concerns that we've talked about. I do think the 180 days is way too long a period for temporary. And also, as I look, the screening to me seems to be an issue, considering the impacts that we're seeing.
What, instead of 180 days, what's your thoughts on a time frame?
Well, I think it should be considerably less than that. I don't know if I have a precise number, but I think it's going to be up to the applicant.
I think we're going to have to come up with one here if we're going to change it from 180. You know, I just,
60 days seems like plenty for temporary staying. I mean,
60 to 90 at the most, I would imagine. At the most.
I think 60, because even with the applicant's comment that, well, people that come in 30, maybe 60 days. And that would be a maximum. And also that does take away from somebody that's, say, living there for 6 months, bringing in a whole bunch of stuff, sitting alongside their trailer and stuff. And maybe there is a condition that says, you know, if they come in and they're transient and say they're towing the boat or something, whatever they have on their vehicle, but they can't bring in, say, end up putting a little building or, you know, bringing something else in after they bring their vehicle in. I don't know how you would, you know, write a...
It's just a tent with a few kids staying in it.
that might be fine.
So are we looking at a 2-month period? Is that what we're talking about?
It seems so.
Or a month? Or, yeah.
60 days? Yeah.
Well, I think there's more than just the time, which is probably hard to design here right here and without having the applicant maybe talk with staff again. But several of you brought up this whole issue about site design. I'm going to tell them to redo the roads and stuff like that here today. I mean, maybe it needs to be sent back. And I have the time, the visibility, the site design, and the condition of the vehicles are what I heard is some of the major concerns that haven't been addressed yet or satisfied. Are we going to do it here by committee, or are we going to have staff work it out with the applicant and come back?
Paul has a comment on that.
Perhaps, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, that you can direct staff to work with the applicant regarding these issues that you're bringing up, and we can continue this item, work with the applicant, and then come back to your commission when we've got a proposal. That would give us an opportunity to look at maybe, for example, other parks and see what they do as far as timeframes and be able to provide you that information.
From here, and I think we like that idea.
Yeah.
I think probably the areas to be addressed would be the length of stay, the screening of vehicles, the condition of them,
And the site design somewhat.
and a closer look at the layout.
For tree removal.
Yeah, site design includes the tree removal issue.
So does this require a motion and a vote to make this happen officially, or how do we proceed from here?
So I can make a motion to continue.
We will want to take a motion on that. I'm just clarifying whether we're going for a date certain or...
What we'd like to do is, excuse me, what we'd like to do is to a date certain. We're looking at probably September 13th.
First meeting in September?
Right. So it would be, let's just go with September 13th at 10:05.
I'll move that we continue this item to September.
Hold on, I think we have a comment from the applicant regarding that. Okay, so we need to figure out the first meeting in October? If we have that. That's fine. Michael's working on that right now. Okay, so we request that we continue this item till October 11th at 10:05. So it's a date and time certain.
I'll make that motion.
I'd make that motion.
Here we have motion over here. Will you second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to have staff, you got everything that you think you need to work on, or?
Yes, we do.
Mr. Chair, we might want to clarify for members of the public, by continuing this to a date and time certain, there will not be another notification in the mail.
We all have that date and time, so you know when to come on back. All right.
And the staff report will be available a week or so before the meeting, right? Online?
I believe it's the Friday before?
Okay.
Friday before online, yes.
Okay.
All right, I think at this time we'll take a quick 5-minute break, stretch, and come on back to business.
ask that question, but
ACLU will come.
Great, looks like we're ready to get back at it here and hit our 10:20 item. EJ?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the Commission. EJ Avaldi with the Planning Services Division. Today we are back with the Amazing Facts Ministry Project as per the direction given at the June 7th Planning Commission meeting. At that time, Amazing Facts was requesting approval of a minor use permit for a 17-acre campus to support a new house of worship facility with buildings totaling just over 208,000 square feet. As you recall, there was a lot of discussion at that meeting regarding the overall size of the project and related visual and traffic impacts. And after several motions, your commission gave tentative approval for phase 1 only, which was about 118,000 square feet, and asked staff to come back to the Planning Commission with conditions that reflected just phase 1. The Planning Commission did, in June, certify the environmental impact report for the project and also approved the variance for the 7-foot-high sound wall along the west property line. So after the Planning Commission meeting, the applicant team, they went back to re-examine their project objectives and evaluated the actual effects of a phase 1 only approval in terms of site design, functionality, and development cost. And what they found was that the phase 1 only project did not really work as a standalone project. But with some revisions to the site plan and building reconfigurations, they could provide an alternative project that would still meet the spirit and intent of the Planning Commission's tentative approval, as well as meet their own project objectives. The applicant submitted the alternative design to the county, which is referred to in your staff report as the reduced project alternative. This project revision did require staff to go back to revisit the environmental document. As a result, an addendum to the previously certified EIR was prepared after it was determined that all impacts would either be equivalent or reduced when compared to the impacts previously analyzed in the original project's EIR. So today, staff is providing you with a revised set of conditions for the tentatively approved phase 1 as you requested. We are also bringing forward a complete package for the applicant's proposed reduced project alternative. Dave Cook, representing Amazing Facts, today will provide an overview of the reduced project alternative. But first, I want to give you some quick background on the project, just for those in the audience who may be seeing this for the first time. So there's a location map up on the screen right now. The project site is situated on a 74-acre piece located on the south side of Sierra College Boulevard, between Night Watch Drive and Ridge Park Drive. An aerial photo kind of shows a better shot of the area. The project site is highlighted in red right in this area, and Sierra College runs right along here, or actually up through here. City of Rockland is there to the north. Down to the northeast is the town of Loomis. Cabot Ranch Estates is over in this area. And then to the south and east side of the property are larger rural-style parcels, and also the Andrews property where there's an existing wholesale nursery. So this is the original site plan that you considered at the meeting in June. There were a total of 3 buildings, as you remember. There's a phase 1 multi-use building, which is this building right here. There's also the resource building part of phase 1. And then for phase 2 was the main sanctuary building. Access, as you remember, is provided at the intersection of Sierra College Boulevard and Night Watch Drive. Then there's a secondary access with right turn in and right turn out only. That would be constructed about 450 east of the main access right in this area. This slide shows a description of your tentative approval of phase 1 buildings, just gives you an idea of the square footage. There would be a 106,800 square foot multi-use facility. That building would have seating for approximately 1,300 people. And then there would also be the 11,200 square foot resource building. Total parking spaces proposed as part of phase 1 was 625. And then just real quick, these are the building elevations for just phase 1. kind of shows the architecture and the building materials and the earth tone colors that are proposed, and also in the next elevation shows how the building would step down the side of the hillside to lower the actual perception of the total height of the building, which comes in at 57.5 feet. This slide shows the actual phasing plans. The buildings shown in white are part of phase 1. This is what you tentatively approved. This is a multi-use building, and then the resource building up here. The areas highlighted in blue were part of phase 2, which was the main sanctuary and the parking area. The primary concern with development of phase 1 only is that there would be large voids left without the phase 2 main sanctuary and parking areas not being developed. The applicant's redesign addresses these concerns, as well as some other concerns that were brought up at the past hearings. So with this slide, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Cook. He's going to walk through the changes with the reduced project alternative. It's an alternative that staff is in support of, not much different as far as total size from the tentative approval that you gave. So with that, Mr. Cook. I'll grab that when you're done.
All right. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Dave Cook with our CH Group here on behalf of Amazing Facts. As EJ indicated, after the Commission's tentative approval, we went back and evaluated the impacts of that approval. We really didn't have the time to do so here as that discussion was unfolding. But what we realized was with the phase 1 only, there were some shortcomings if that plan were the one to be executed, and EJ alluded to those. First of all, you run the risk, if phase 2 is never approved, of having basically a hole between the two buildings of phase 1 that has both physical, aesthetic, as well as programmatic impacts. The other issue is one of cost. You end up basically spending up to approximately $1 million for site work in anticipation of a phase which may never occur. And that was a reality that we had to evaluate and weigh in terms of how do we best move forward on this. And so with the issue of some dysfunctional site planning and some stranded development costs, the team spent an entire day brainstorming and came up with this proposed alternative. This overlay is a site plan comparison, and what you can see in the shaded areas are the original project phase 2 again in the center, and then these outlines reflect the proposed building footprints of the proposed reduced project alternative. So what you can see is, first and foremost, the resource center has been eliminated. Those functions have been incorporated into the main worship building. That results in an increased landscape buffer of another 20 feet along Sierra College there, which will provide some very nice additional screening. The phase 1 building, instead of being basically 107,000 square feet, in that location now is an administration building of about 24,000. So that building in closest proximity to neighbors has been replaced with the smallest of the two buildings, and that's a 2-story building. You can also see down here the parking footprint in that fine shaded area has been reduced significantly to pull in and be commensurate with what we need on the proposed alternative. What had been a 95,700 square foot, what had been 90,000 is replaced now with the permanent worship facility of 95,000 square feet. So as EJ indicated, the phase 1 tentative approval was about 118,000 square feet. This totals up to about 120,100, less than a 2% increase over what had been tentatively approved last month. So what this allows is a single-phase development. There are no stranded development costs. It's efficient. There's no risk of potential damage to existing buildings by coming back in and attempting to construct new foundations. We looked at the setbacks and compared those to the prior proposal, and in all cases they have been maintained or in fact increased as it relates to adjacent property lines here. So 267 feet, 474, and then 295 for the main building. Keep in mind, in this zone district, 50 feet is the typical setback. Now, one of the things that we did in looking at this is we felt it was important to go back out to the community, even though this is reduced from what the MAC had approved and what a lot of folks had seen. It was important to let them know that there was a change that was being made. And so we went back to the MAC as an information item. A couple of questions, more confusion as to, gosh, we recommended approval before, what happened? We went to the Granite Bay Community Association, and I think you may have in your report letters of support from them. They're in favor of what we've come up with here. Talked to Rockland, we've talked to Loomis and the neighborhood to the east, and we've also had outreach with our neighbors in Cabot Ranch Estates here to the west. I've got one email supporting the project. One owner happens to be the HOA president, but he's voicing his opinion as an individual homeowner, not as the president. Had dialogue with the homeowner who is most affected perhaps by the project because he lives adjacent to it. And this exhibit reflects some of the things that we discussed in the past, some additional good neighbor landscaping, which is facilitated in part by the modified parking lot design, where we pull away from that property line sooner. We can add some more redwoods and screening. We will connect from a wrought iron fence along the top of our slope and back of parking lot. We will connect to his property line to ensure privacy and not allowing trespassers, if you will, down behind his property here. The original sound wall was designed to correlate to the parking lot and the traffic and the noise generated. This shows the location originally proposed. We proposed to move that up about 150 feet. It's got a little bit more of a margin off the back of the parking lot, but there's really no sound attenuation benefit or purpose here for that 7-foot sound wall. So the only other person that I sent a couple of emails to folks in Rockland who in the past had shown an interest and shown some concern, and also reached out to the gentleman who stood up and protested, who is building a home or has built a home here to the south, and did not hear back from him and only one of the people in Rockland. Don't know if we can interpret that as good news or bad news. The revised elevations, very similar to what you saw before. The difference is that the 24,000 square foot administrative building is only 2 stories. So while the main worship facility takes advantage of the slope and steps down that hill, the admin building, significantly smaller, has no basement, so has no lower floor. That's part of what allowed us to reduce the footprint and reduce some of the impacts. So this from the east and the north elevation. You can see, again, from the front, to keep these horizontal planes, maintain that architectural style of sort of a prairie-style look. And then this, you can see the most significant difference, whereas before, this early phase 1 building stepped down the hill and had similar massing as the main worship facility, now is this smaller 24,000 square foot building, and you can see it juxtaposed against that primary worship facility. One of the things that we looked at before was the context of the project in relation to the homes and the neighborhood. And you can see here with the proposal in the darker gray screening, the admin building, again, that which is closest to the existing homes, although still large, is actually fairly consistent with the footprint of some of these other large estate homes here. Topography is a little difficult to see, but remember we also talked about how these contours and the formation on this ridge really minimized the views of these buildings from the surrounding areas. And in fact, but for a little section across the Bushnell Nursery down on the Andrews property looking up, and some of these properties right below, who can see up at the top, really the only other views of these buildings will be from Sierra College and Night Watch, and then of course out of the backyards of these folks. Dr. Taggart, who was concerned about the impacts on his property, I don't believe that he'll be able to see any more than perhaps a rooftop, given the angle and the topography and the tree cover down in here. We also wanted to look at this, not just from that graphic depiction, but to drop this footprint on the reduced project alternative in, so you can get a sense how it relates to the aerial physical reality, if you will. So again, this gives you an idea, not only the setback that we've got to the property line, but given the size of these lots in Cabot Ranch Estates, a significant distance between those backyards, the back of those homes, and these buildings and the parking. And you can see that this is the Taggart property here. Again, the ridge line and the trees are such that based on my site visits all along this southern boundary, I don't believe there's going to be much of a view, if any, looking back up this direction. These are the oak woodland impacts previously, about 6.3 acres, plus a couple of significant trees, those over 24 inches. And by virtue of the reduction in the footprint and the revised site plan, we've reduced by about 40% the amount of oak tree impacts. And so the blue is the new zone of impact, and the orange or yellow shows where that impact had been previously. One of the key concerns that came out in the numerous public outreach meetings, and an element which is still part of this proposal, is the restriping of Sierra College. And that is to take the existing 3-1 lane configuration, one being the northbound single lane from just before Night Watch all the way up through to Southside Ranch. And although this will require formal approval from the city of Rockland, we will, once we hopefully have project approval, we'll approach them and get that formalized and documented to go forward. And that would modify the lane configuration. So there are 2 lanes northbound, 2 lanes southbound. And again, this is not an impact for which a mitigation was required. This was something that we heard over and over, regardless of the various community groups we spoke with, and we felt that it was an important thing to do and an important thing to maintain as part of the proposal. The other thing we looked at, because it was one of the only significant and unavoidable impacts, were the visual impacts on here. So we went back, and just quickly I want to show you the visual simulation work that we had done. Again, the look from Night Watch and Sierra College. There's a view west of Barton along Cabot Stallman looking across from the nursery. If you recall, we laid out balloons based on the original footprint. This shows the reduced project alternative and the old balloons. And you can see here, obviously, where the resource center was and where the outline area of the Phase 1 building were. There are no longer buildings. These are the original balloons that were plotted, measured based on finished grade, proposed to the top of the buildings. Again, you can see the reduction in the width and breadth and height as it relates to the admin building for those balloons that we flew out there to analyze. This is a view looking basically northeast at Sierra College and Night Watch. Difficult to see in this light, but you see the numbered balloons that correspond to the site map and the elevations. Here you see both buildings dropped in, and you can see what had been the extent of the prior project in these other balloons here. This is without landscaping. This is the before and after with landscaping at what we approximate to be year 7 to 10. So some maturity on there. This is the 7-foot sound wall EJ made reference to that provides sound attenuation to the neighboring property. Again, on the visual simulation, we looked at these areas with a normal 50 millimeter lens for what the naked eye would see. You see the balloons plotted there, and then we drop in the buildings. And again, these balloons out here more to the west are no longer marking a building because of the reduction. Yes, you can still see the building from this area, but it is smaller and pulled further back from the slope by virtue of its size. So that's why this still remains a significant and unavoidable impact, in spite of the fact that, as we talked about, there's been lots of development up on that ridgetop. So to summarize, the changes are we've reduced the resource center. That was an issue of some concern. It just made sense in our evaluation of a more optimal and a more efficient alternative site plan. Reduced the buildings by 88,000 square feet, or 42%. The original size, again, was 208,000, now 120. The worship center, we went from 2,000 seats at build-out to 1,650. And Amazing Facts has sort of lowered their sights in terms of what their ultimate growth may be, and they feel that they can make this work. So it still meets their objectives, and that's important. Parking was reduced from 900 to 670, slightly more than Phase 1 alone, simply because of the additional seating in the worship facility. I mentioned the landscaping buffer on Sierra College. So we've reduced the overall land disturbance on that footprint up on top of the ridge. It went from basically a 17.5 acre site down to about 15.2. The oak woodland impacts reduced by about 40%. Grading and earthwork, which translates into both dollars as well as air quality and traffic issues, reduced by about 47,000 cubic yards, not an insignificant amount. So again, retaining walls, paving, and base rock, all these things reflect both cost savings as well as construction impact savings. The only other issue is there is off-site sewer that was going to be done in 2 phases. It can now be done in 1 phase, so we don't tear up Sierra College more than the one time. And because of the sewer flow, there's no reason to replace the pumps in the Cabot Ranch Estates system. So all these reduced impacts were evaluated in the addendum EIR. They've been confirmed by that, so there are no new or more severe impacts as required by CEQA. This is an alternative. It's a variation of Alternative 3 that was in the certified EIR, and that evaluated the impacts of this use. We believe that the reduced project alternative responds to the Commission's direction and stated concerns, and that was scale back the project. We've done that, and we think the revised site plan better utilizes the site, and it still meets the needs and the objectives of Amazing Facts. So with that, we respectfully request your support of our proposed reduced project alternative. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Looks like you're off the hook for now.
For now.
Is there anybody who would like to speak about this?
I would have a question. It's not my project, but I was very curious. I think this lady's ready to speak, so I won't say anything.
My name is Madeline Kalani, and I'm a member of the Granite Bay Community Association, and we did appreciate the fact that Dave came forward with the new plan because we were not excited about the old one because of its length and breadth, because of its size, because of its effect on the community, and we feel the new one reflects more a religious community that is more of a local versus regional, and we gave support to this new plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, please.
Not our project at all, but I was asking about, aren't churches all tax exempt? Is all this property going to be tax exempt because it's church? And the people that are paying taxes below in their homes, aren't they going to resent the tax-free up there? I may be wrong. Maybe the church property is taxable now. I don't know. It was just a question. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good question, one that came up before, and Dave hopefully will be quick to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a portion of that property may have a tax exemption, but not the entire property. Is that true?
Thank you.
And then just if I could add, before you guys deliberate, this did go back to the Granite Bay back in August, just as an information item. It's been there before, the original project where they voted to approve the project in its entirety. So as a courtesy, we went back and showed them the revisions, and I think it was pretty much all positive comments at that meeting. And then, just to help, up on the screen is a couple directions you could go and recommended actions according. The first is, as you originally requested, the tentative approval of Phase 1 only, which are the first 2 bullet points, and then for the reduced project alternative, if the Commission heads in that direction, those 1 and 2 on the bottom are the actions that would be necessary.
Thank you. Commissioners?
I just have a comment. I think this is what we were talking about last meeting when it came before us the first time, and it looks like the applicant has basically complied with our concerns and brought them back a project that will work for us and work for them and work, I guess, for most of the community, since we didn't hear too much this time from the community, but we heard a lot last time. So, and I think last time most of it, if I can remember, was because it was just the scale. It was just too large. That was a majority of it, and this alternative was already in the EIR. We decided to approve just phase 1, so it's back because of that. So I think it's a good project.
Okay, well, I'd make the motion that we take action to approve the applicant's reduced project alternative, variation of the DIR alternative 3, and that we adopt the addendum to the environmental impact statement and approve the minor use permit to allow the house of worship facility, and also approve recognize the findings of the reduced project alternative and the final environmental impact report addendum.
Motion, do we have a second? And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Could I just clarify for the record that that motion included the adoption of the findings and the mitigation monitoring and reporting program?
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's what I heard.
1 and 2.
Yeah, very good hearing.
Okay. All right.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, you also need to mention the appeal period.
Anybody wishing to appeal this decision may do so by paying a fee of $529 within 10 calendar days of today.
You want these back?
Five item, the minor use permit and variance and modification to building envelope for the Gold Hills Garden Event Center. Melanie?
Thank you. The applicant is requesting approval of a minor use permit to allow for the operation of a guest ranch with up to 9 units, including a bed and breakfast within the existing residence, a community center, a plant nursery, and use of the subject property for garden tours. The community center would include the use of the property for up to 200 guests for weddings and events, and the construction of an approximately 5,250 square foot event center structure. The property site is located in western Placer County in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. The site also contains Doty Ravine and the associated riparian corridor on the north side of the property, a Nevada Irrigation District canal on the west side of the property, a Nevada Irrigation District overflow channel on the southwest side of the property, and oak woodland habitats throughout the property. The surrounding properties include cattle pastures to the north, west, and south, and oak woodland to the east, an organic farm with the Placer County Department of Conservation Agricultural Conservation easement is located to the immediate southwest of the project site, and then the neighboring property directly to the west of the project site is within a Williams-Knapp contract. The subject property is currently utilized for residence and for raising cattle. The property is zoned farm with a 10-acre minimum parcel size, and it has a Placer County general plan designation of agricultural timberland with a 10-acre minimum parcel size. The surrounding properties are also zone farmed with a 4.6 to 10 acre minimum. This is the project site as it exists currently. The project site is presently developed with an existing single-family residence of approximately 4,200 square feet, an approximately 500 square foot pool cabana, and 55,000 gallon pool, a basketball court, a mobile home, and a pole barn. The applicant is requesting approval of the minor use permit to allow for the operation of a guest ranch and the plant nursery and garden tours. The guest ranch would include transient accommodations in up to 4 rooms of the existing 4,200 square foot residence and up to 5 proposed cottages that would also be located on the property. And this is the property with the proposed development. The applicant is requesting approval as well of the elimination of a building envelope which was delineated on parcel map book 30 on page 89, and it was described in note 3 of that map. And the purpose is to be able to build the community center and the cottages outside of that building envelope. The proposed community center would include the construction of the 5,250-foot structure, a 90-stall parking area, and it would allow for up to 200 guests for events. These operations would occur between 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. The community center would also include construction of a bathroom facility with 4 to 6 fixtures for each male and female restroom area. The plant nursery would include approximately 5,000 square feet of growing area and approximately 1,000 square feet of retail nursery area, and would involve growing of plants and retail sales. The proposed project would generate approximately 190 daily vehicle trips. And this is just highlighting those areas as it looks on the project site. This is the area, this is the driveway here, looking towards Chili Hill Road. And the driveway on the other side, looking in the opposite direction. The proposed project's impacts associated with traffic will be mitigated to a less than significant level by the implementation of the mitigation measures included in the environmental document, which includes the payment of traffic fees and the construction of a plate R17 standard road encroachment. Section 175406OB of the Placer County Zoning Ordinance provides that for community center use, the applicant shall provide 1 parking stall per 40 square feet of multi-purpose floor area. The event center would include approximately 3,596 square feet of multi-purpose use area, and this equates to 90 parking stalls. These are the parking areas on the property. These are highlights and pictures of the drive aisle on the property and the driveway around the existing residence. The project would be completed in 3 phases, and phase 1 would include the construction of a 20-foot wide paved access drive to the parking areas and the residence, construction of 65 parking stalls, and which includes 2 ADA stalls and a septic system to provide service to the community center. Phase 2 would involve the construction of the community center itself, the construction of a 16-foot wide concrete paver drive aisle around the existing residence, and the construction of a well meeting the standards of a public water well. Phase 3 would involve the construction of the 5 guest ranch cottages, and this would also include the installation of a septic system, parking stalls to accommodate each structure, and a concrete paver drive aisle to be available for emergency vehicles. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow for the construction of the community center 50 feet from the center line of the NID Canal. In response to this submittal, Nevada Irrigation District sent an email on July 31st. They stated that they would support the reduction in the setback so long as the applicant would encase the canal. This is just to give you an idea of where, this is the existing basketball here. This is approximately the edge of the bathroom area. And then about right here where the applicant is standing, that's where the beginning of the community center structure is, and then it extends back this way. So as proposed, the applicants would utilize 4 of the bedrooms in the existing 4,200 square foot residence as part of the guest ranch, and then they would construct 5 additional guest ranch cottages on the project site, which would be located over here. And this is basically, they would be located, this is the NID Canal, and then this would be the location of those cottages. That's just a closer picture of that. Staff supports the concept of the guest cottages. However, staff has concluded that the number of the cottages proposed is too intense, and staff has concluded that it can support the development of the 2 cottages as long as the cottages are constructed in another area where it would not require a variance to construct those cottages. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the proposed Gold Hill Gardens project as follows. We recommend that the minor use permit be approved to allow for the use of the community center, and the Planning Commission approve the use of the retail plant nursery and garden tours. Staff also recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the minor use permit, recommends that the Planning Commission approve the minor use permit to allow for the bed and breakfast use for up to 4 bedrooms in the existing residence, as well as 2 guest cottages. For the variance, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the variance request to allow for the construction of the the construction of the community center structure 50 feet from the center line of the Nevada Irrigation District Canal. And then staff also recommends that the Planning Commission eliminate the identified building envelope on parcel map book 30, page 89. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Let me see. Apparently what I'm hearing is the canal will be encased.
That's correct.
And so that's the basis for the variance for the recreation building. I was wondering why that would prevent, construction of the guest cottages.
Well, actually, the encasement portion actually came in pretty late in the game as far as the proposal. So we received that requirement from NID on the 31st of July, and the applicant, that was going to be a condition of approval, and it wasn't worked into the staff report or our not necessarily our recommendations, but if the applicant were to encase the canal as recommended by NID, they will then support that variance, and in addition, then we would, because they wouldn't have that 100 foot from center line setback requirement.
And so then what you're saying is staff would support the variance for 5 cottages and not moving them outside of, if it's encased?
If he encases the canal, then planning would, or excuse me, the DRC would be supportive of, because the variance would no longer be required. However, and that's how our condition reads, that, as long as there's no variance required. So once that encasement occurs, no variance is required from the canal, and we would support those cottages. However, we're only supporting 2.
Okay, thank you.
Question? When you say encased, are you talking about lining the canal, or is it going into a pipe and being buried underground?
I am not an expert on that, but I believe it is encasing, as in it would go underground. Somebody else might have to speak to that. We may have somebody from NID here today if we do. Oh, great.
Okay, maybe,
so maybe he can speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
It's up to the chairman.
Is he going to answer
I guess
the
there's a
question
water
now?
agency guy up there.
We'll give you,
Might as well now.
come on up, please, yes.
Yeah.
He looks like NID.
Hello, I'm Matthew Crow from Nevada Irrigation District, senior right-of-way agent. The condition for encasement of the canal would include underground pipe that would accommodate our master plan flows and meet all of our engineering specifications. I think a point of clarification would be that encasement of the canal would essentially eliminate the need for a variance for the setback to the canal. One issue, just a pointer. There we go. The issue that would still remain would be what has been termed the overflow channel that runs along the southwest portion of the property. And that would remain exposed to any activities or impacts created by the project. That flows pretty much year-round and flows a fair quantity of water. That at a certain point further to the west of the project in Doty Ravine gets picked up and utilized by the district, and we would be very concerned about the inclusion of the 5 cottages because that is not a facility that could be encased readily because it also deals with stormwater and other natural water.
One question, maybe with the pointer, because you can see the 5 units there. Point where the overflow and you're telling me what the effect is.
Yes.
Just sort
okay.
of.
So this is essentially the alignment of the canal. Okay. And a little bit further to the south, the water from the canal, when there's too much to be handled in the canal, gets diverted into this channel here, which is a natural ravine waterway that we happen to utilize that carries water into Doty Ravine, a little bit to the northwest of the property, and then that water again carries on down and gets taken back out of Doty Ravine at a diversion point into the Doty South Canal. So the concern from the district standpoint is that these are proposed to be within, I believe it's stated 22.5 feet of this natural drainage swale. And so I don't think we would be in support of that. As written in the staff report, you're talking about recommending approval for 2 cottages that would not be within the setback distance elsewhere on the property. And again, if that was a condition that was met, then the district wouldn't have any concerns. An additional concern with the cottages being over on this side of the canal is that would certainly create the situation that you would have users of the property other than the applicant, certainly the transient users of the property, crossing district facilities and potentially having conflicts there. So that would, if they were elsewhere on the property, it certainly wouldn't create that kind of issue for us. Does that clarify? Yes.
One question on that. If it's encased, why would there be a problem with going across it?
Well, just because you would have district crews potentially in there at a certain time, we would have. I don't think it would be a major concern.
Yeah, buried would be hard to envision. Do you know by chance how much setbacks required from an overflow ditch to a structure?
Well, we would advocate that be the same 100-foot setback. That would be the way we would look at it. It's essentially a conduit that we flow water in, just as it is as a canal would be, but that's also a natural waterway that takes. And so I don't know exactly how the county perceives that setback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I have one question.
But let's just be clear, given what NID is saying, that we just eliminate all the cottages?
We wouldn't recommend elimination of all the cottages, just a relocation of 2 of them.
And has there been any review of possible sites or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
But that is something that could be reviewed with the building permit, because they'd have to come in with a site plan and show us where the location was.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Melanie, I am having a little difficulty with one of the statements in the staff report you made. Said that those 3 extra cottages or 3 cottages would not be recommended for approval because it's too intense, and yet there's a 200-seating community center that's, to my opinion, is more intense as far as all the other effects that we've noted in the staff report and all the letters we've received, but traffic, noise, etc. Why that says more intense? Is it just because of this canal or other factors? Or
It would be because of the use, because it provides for overnight stays. And so that would be, depending on how long the stay was, rather than an hourly time frame, it could be, days or a week of say 18 people on that project site. So rather than, a short time frame, it would be, night and day for 5 cottages and 4 bedrooms.
Okay. Any other questions?
I want to hear the app.
All right, thank you, Melanie.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to come up and
Good morning, members of the commission, Chairman. My name is Mike Carson. I reside on the property at 2325 Gold Hill Road. I would like to address the ditch issue a little bit. I'll probably do that just after I finish my little presentation here for you, and then I'll open myself up for questions. And I would like to thank staff for their efforts, a very thorough process that we've gone through with the mitigated neg deck and the conditions of approval. We are in concurrence with their conditions and their recommendations. I would like to clarify a little bit on the cottages, though, because what I heard is a little bit different than what I understood in writing. I'd like to give a little bit of history on our property. My wife and I purchased the property 15 years ago. It was a 33-acre parcel. We lived on the northern portion of it in a small cottage for probably the first 5 or 6 years, and then we divided the parcel into 3 parcels. We have 2 children, and so we've retained all 3 parcels, thinking someday that they may end up trying to build a home or something on one of the parcels and live there with us as well. We have, like I said, we've been there for 15 years. We've had a cow-calf operation continuous since that time, since the first day we were out there. And we run anywhere from 18 to 24 head of cattle year-round. We have 15 acres of irrigated pasture. We purchase 11 miners inches of water from NID that we irrigate the 15 acres with, along with other irrigation on the grounds. Since we have been there, we built a new house over on the southern end, and we've been in there for about 10 years now. We have had continuous, I guess you could call them community events over at our property, where we routinely do Mother's Day brunch, pumpkin carving gatherings in October, and I have regular horseshoe tournaments with many of the neighbors. A lot of the people that are here today have been to my property and have been to these functions. Never once have we received any complaints from anyone. At a lot of those events, we've had people ask us if they could rent our place to hold weddings or to have other gathering type functions. And so now that our kids are out of the house, we started thinking, well, gosh, maybe that's not such a bad idea. We're getting to kind of our retirement age here soon, and it would help offset the costs associated with the maintenance that we have on the property and the water and the cattle operation. So we know a personal friend of ours that works at the flower farm, which is a facility very similar to what we're proposing, and actually we're modeling after that. And so we went down with her and toured the flower farm and their operation, and we thought, shoot, we could definitely do this. We went after that. We went and met with planning staff at the county and did research and found that that we fell within the zoning requirements, and all we needed to do was process a minor use permit. So more than a year ago, we submitted an application, and we thought that we were just going to be going to the zoning administrator and would be getting a minor use permit. It was our understanding that it would be a fairly straightforward process. Since then, we were continued from the zoning administrator for lack of environmental review. They felt that there needed to be more environmental review, and so we completed a new application, and went through doing a full-blown mitigated neg deck, prepared all the studies, arborist report, biological, traffic, sound, floodplain analysis, drainage, the whole Marianne. So we're not trying to cut any corners anywhere. We want to do what's right, and we've been good neighbors, and we want to continue to be good neighbors. We also held 3 independent meetings on our property with our neighbors, went around and handed out flyers to all of our neighbors within about a half-a-mile radius, held 3 independent meetings on our site to try to address or at least understand what concerns they might have with what we were proposing. As a result of that, we actually physically moved where we were originally proposing the building. It was going to be up on top where the parking area was, and we've moved it down over to the top of the basketball court so that it would be less obtrusive and not have any visual impact and reduce noise and light for the immediate neighbors. We, at the last meeting that we had with them, after we showed them all the changes we were making and trying to address their concerns the best that we could, we were told by many of them the only project is no project that they would support. They didn't want to have any kind of project at all out there. The opposition started rallying neighbors together by using scare tactics in conjunction with the community center. They were saying things like, we're going to be opening a nightclub, strip joint, create an endless stream of cars and noise and would be depleting and contaminating the groundwater and the streams. As you can see from the mitigated neg deck and all of the studies we've done, the facts of that are quite the opposite, prove quite the opposite. The primary concerns of the opposition are the following. One, and primarily the first one being, I think, is the noise, the potential for increase of noise. We've addressed this issue through the current design and the placement of the reception area and buildings by pushing it down further into the center of our property and down into the basin that it's in. It's well protected from existing physical features, not just topography and trees, but also other structures that we have currently on the property. We did a sound study, and we are and we've been given conditions, condition 23, 32, and I'm sorry, conditions 59 through 63 of your conditions of approval address the noise parameters associated with the outdoor event portion and even the indoor once we build the building that we are okay with, and we will manage the noise levels out there very severely. Like I said, we want to be good neighbors. And then also another method of dealing with the noise is the hours of operation. Originally we were looking to operate longer periods of time, working with staff and understanding the area. We agreed that we would reduce the time frame for when we can have the events. The second component that seemed to be the biggest concern of the neighbors was the traffic and parking. I guess I kind of combine those together because they're all vehicle related. We addressed those through doing a full-blown traffic study and having staff has provided conditions 23 and 32 and 33 on the conditions of approval, which we're in full in agreement with. We've increased the available parking to 95 stalls, although all we're required to have is 90 stalls. There's actually 95 available, and I would like to state those are all full standard stalls. There are no compacts in there. If we want, we could put additional compact stalls and probably pick the parking up by, I counted it this morning, there's probably another 8 stalls just in the existing envelope that's there now. So we don't anticipate there's going to be any parking issues. We will be providing incentives to our patrons for carpooling, and we will also be working with the local hotels to promote shuttle service for guests that are staying in their facilities, which a lot of times with wedding events, if you've got people coming from out of town, they tend to stay in the local hotels and motels, and a lot of those provide shuttle service, so we'll work closely with them for that. Then the last component that I've continued to hear is compatibility. And I struggle with the compatibility part of it because we live within a farm zone. We live right on the designated wine trail. Gold Hill Road is a designated wine trail route. It is also the designated path of travel for the Hidden Falls Regional Park at the top of the hill. We operate a cattle operation. We have for the last 15 years. We have fruits and vegetables, and we anticipate starting back up with doing fresh milk and eggs. And when our kids were younger and going to school, we have a Jersey cow that we used to milk. We don't anymore, but we'll probably start doing that again. We've got a winery is almost an adjacent neighbor of ours. We have NID plant, full commercial plant is kitty corner across the street from us, less than 2 blocks away. It's the full plant that they have there. The Grange Hall, which is it's not a very improved site and is unmanaged, is less than 0.6 of a mile from us, and it has regular meetings there. Like I said, they're not nearly as controlled and regulated as we will be, and we'll maintain our grounds. So, I've been heard as being compared to the Grange Hall. It's not going to be anything like that. We anticipate having local fundraising functions and gatherings, as well as outside people from outside of the area coming in and spending their tax dollars in our county. And then lastly, we really want to promote the garden tours. We have a lot of very formal landscaping. We're continuing always to expand on that, and we want to beautify the property and allow others to be able to share in that. The other issues raised that may be raised today, and the written correspondence that you've seen, is simply untrue and unfounded, and are scare tactics to try to make it seem like we're out there doing things we shouldn't be doing. And it's really trying to implement their true goal of no change at all. They just don't, some of the neighbors don't want any change out there and won't recognize that things do change. They don't want anybody else to encroach into their space. So with that, I'd like to say that my wife and I take pride in our property and our standings as good neighbors, and will continue to do so. I'd make myself available for any questions that you have. I also have Ken Anderson from KDA is here, my traffic engineer. John Lopez from Ballard Acoustical, who performed the sound study, the professional sound study, is here. And Kevin Kemper, my land use attorney, is here to answer any technical questions that you might have relative to the traffic or noise or the mitigate make deck. I guess with that is kind of the end of my presentation, but I would like to address this, the cottage issue, if that's okay. First of all, let's see if I can figure out how to use this thing. The overswale that they're talking about is a localized, if it weren't for the overflow, it wouldn't have water in it year-round, for sure. It doesn't have water in it year-round. It does flow just on and off as they spill water into it. It is a swale that originates back here, and it just runs down right along this line right here, and then it comes up and it ties into Doty Ravine about right here. We are already 100 feet or more from that swale to any of these structures. So we meet that requirement right off the bat. I explained that before. It's actually very difficult to see because you see these little bubble things here? That's solid blackberries. You can't even see the swale from the property. It's so overgrown. So as far as access and people getting in there from our property, there'd be no reason for that to occur. Our cattle currently come all the way up into here. There's actually an electric fence that runs along the edge of the blackberry bushes to keep them out of the blackberries. So there isn't any risk of anybody getting down into that swale, and we meet the setback requirement. The two cottages, and Melanie can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding by the requirement to encase the swale is as a result of wanting to build these cottages here. And we agreed that we would go down to 2. We didn't have a problem with just going to 2 if they felt that it was too much of an impact for number of people. The other thing that we could propose, and I wouldn't have a problem with, would be to limit the length of time people could stay there. We have no intention of having 18 people stay there, for 30 days. We anticipate that it's going to be weekends or maybe 3 or 4 days at a time. So we wouldn't have any problem working with staff to try to come up with a reasonable limit. We hadn't really thought about it, but we wouldn't have problems working with staff to do that. But the 2 cottages that we would be installing would be somewhere along this side once we encase this portion of the channel. And once we encase that portion of the channel, there is no setback requirement. You just stay out of the easement. Right now, right there is the siphon, the start of a siphon, and it's already piped from there across Doty Ravine. It comes back out on the other side into a ditch. So it's already piped right there. We would just be picking up the pipe, meeting NID's requirements for whatever their design requirements are, and extending that pipe down to right in here somewhere. So it doesn't pose any issues. I hope I explained that well enough. So I make myself available if any of you have any specific questions.
Maybe one question, because you sort of left it open on time of stay and saying, well, I can work with staff on that. I mean, what is your thoughts on that? Is it 4-night maximum for people, or when you talk about a weekend, is it?
Well, for sure we'd want to do, if there's a lengthy weekend, you're going to be 4 nights. So I would just say a 1-week maximum continuous stay with any single patron. Absolutely.
And then the other thing, just 2 units going down to 2 units is okay.
We would prefer to have the 5, but we're okay with 2. I'd be okay with 2. I mean, I don't think the 5 really causes that much more impact, but it's not worth a big battle over. So if staff's more comfortable with 2, we'll work with that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a quick show of hands of people who would like to speak about this? I kind of thought so. All right. Maybe we need to take 5 before we get into this?
In 3 minutes.
Yeah, we'll get into that when we get back. But for right now, we'll take 5.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Show me his boss.
Before we get started, just would like to let you know that the comments will be limited. There'll be a 3-minute time period. You'll see the lights and the timer go off. If when you come up, you could, at the podium there, you got colored lights. It'll tell you your time frame and stuff. If you could please clearly give us your name when you come up and start to speak, that would be helpful also. And whoever would like to go first.
They want to queue up.
Yeah, you know, if you'd like to kind of just maybe get in a line and queue up so that we can keep things moving, that would probably be a good idea. If you'd like to just echo what somebody else has said as opposed to repeat it and save time and be more concise, that would probably be good also.
Ready? Hi, I'm Melissa Herman. I've lived in the Placer County area for, almost 18 years. And I've known the Carsons since we moved here. We all lived in Granite Bay together. I currently am an employee at the flower farm. I know the Bowler family very well. I've known them for 8 years. And when they were interested in opening something similar to this, I thought that was a wonderful opportunity for our community, because the flower farm it's become a landmark to the Loomis area, and I thought, why not Newcastle have something similar to that? I think it would service areas for Lincoln and the areas of the wine trail, but mostly I want to talk about what our event center does for the community. Not only do we host weddings there on the weekends, but and we have families that come in from all over the country and stay at our location. We also have people who just travel from San Francisco to stay at our location. We have local families who want to have weddings close to home and for people to see what the Loomis community is like. And all of these people go outside of our location and spend time in Auburn, Granite Bay, Roseville. They take tours to all the different mandarin farms. They do the trails. They go up to Newcastle Produce. They spend quite a bit of time enjoying what our community has to offer. And if you're familiar with the flower farm, it is an agricultural kind of place. We have mandarin groves on the facility, but the cottages host people overnight. And it enables families to come in and stay at our location for for a weekend, to gather in a community with the family. And they don't have to leave the premises if they don't want to. And it gives them, we host breakfast for them. They enjoy their wedding. They get up and the next day and are able to spend more time there gathering together with the family on a large property. And they take time touring and the gardens, visiting the coffee house, and enjoying just the agricultural feeling of our area that they don't get to experience so much down in more suburban areas. Also, what our place also hosts is a lot of community events and services. We have memorial services there. We host a lot of high school programs there. We host a lot of just local community events. All our nonprofit groups that come in, they get a substantial discount for using our facility, which encourages the community to come to our area. And it also gives an opportunity for people not to have to travel far to our within the community. And it's become a true landmark there. If anybody has any questions, what else we host there, or the impact of different things, that'd be great.
Yeah, we're out of time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I understand. 3 minutes isn't very much. But thank you anyway, and I totally agree that this would be a great positive environmental and community
Thank
place.
you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mark Fowler, Chairman.
Oh, no, you're not done yet.
Time's up. She took your time.
It's going on.
Next? No.
I'll be under 3 minutes. I'm Mark Fowler, Chairman of Rural Lincoln MAC. We've heard this project at the June and July meetings. Usually our attendance is about low teens. We're in the 50 range both times, so you can realize that the neighbors in the community were quite concerned about the project. After the second round, the Lincoln Rural MAC sent you a notice that we did not support the project. And a couple big issues, which you're going to hear in a few moments again from the neighbors, is the traffic and the noise. And I think it was kind of hard to explain to the citizens that when you have 90 vehicles go by your driveway and then 90 vehicles go by your driveway again after the wedding event, that that's not a significant impact on your rural life. But I guess the protocol for the planning department is that that's not an issue. But I think you're going to hear that time and time again. It's the quality of life. You live in the country, you'd like it quiet. If there's a big event, people can live with that. But if there's 58 events a year, that's 1/6 of the year that you could have quite an event going past your driveway. And that's a different feeling than living in the city versus living in the country. So I would encourage you to seriously consider the Rural Lincoln MAC's recommendation for this project. If it was just cottages, I don't think there would be an issue. But when you have 200 people from March through October on Friday and Saturday nights, if he's successful to have that quality of a business, that's a lot of business that goes by a rural country road and neighbors right next door. So I'd hope you consider the action by the Rural Lincoln MAC, and good luck in your decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Marilyn Jasper. I'm speaking on behalf of Sierra Club and Public Interest Coalition. Although we don't necessarily agree with the responses in the 300-page staff report, we very much appreciate it's being broken up into 4 downloadable bytes, B-Y-T-E-S, sized parts. The public comments provided compelling arguments for a reasonable person to conclude that an EIR, Environmental Impact Report, is called for. This project will have cumulative impacts with 2 other year-round community center requests and ever-increasing number of rural events, both permitted and unpermitted, as advertised in newspapers, flyers, emails, websites, and the county's promotion of tourism events in the 1994 general plan, such as Goal 1K includes, quote, the promotion of recreation and tourism, unquote. And another one under foothill policies, 1N14, the county shall support development of tourist and recreational facilities that extend foothill area tourist season and recreational facilities. Furthermore, at a recent North Auburn MAC meeting, a tourist organization spokesman said in part, quote, one of the things we're trying to do is expand our tourist business for the whole county. So some of those tools are obviously having facilities and reasons to come and stay, unquote. The winery ordinance was not in place in 1994, the general plan. Changed circumstances now allow the current 18 wineries to have 6 two-day events plus 2 more temporary outdoor events. These facts, we believe, justify our claims of cumulative traffic impacts. Also, it is reasonably foreseeable that there will be more community center requests, especially with the vague zoning language. What are the cumulative traffic impacts of 5, 25, or 50 year-round community centers with overlapping events? We don't know because the analysis is missing. Last, the requirement of the commercial well is deferred mitigation. Our comments were deemed speculative, But nothing could be more speculative than trying to predict groundwater table levels and future supplies for this project's phasing. All it takes is 1 or 2 drought years, which we've all experienced, where it impacts all the neighbors. This project calls for proper analysis in an EIR. We are not opposed to reasonable numbers of events or community centers. If the parameters are clearly defined and enforceable, we ask you to suspend any approvals of this project until they're defined. Thank you.
Thank you.
Starting over, I hope. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Giles. I represent Neighborhood Rescue Group, as well as I'm a 26-year captain of the Sacramento Fire Department. I want to ask you a question, for starters, on a personal level. I like to have Mother's Day events, pumpkin carving, small family gatherings. My question for you would be, what impact will 200 people with music playing at 75 decibels at the property line that can party until 10 p.m., what effect will that have on you and your family gathering? This project has Mr. Carson, sound engineer, is here. I literally can hear voices from my neighbor at 640 yards when I get a gentle breeze towards me. So my question for Mr. Carson's sound engineer would be, how far will the sound from 200 partiers and 75 decibel noise carry in the foothills? I would like to know that answer. We're looking at a project with a single access road, one-way traffic. It does not meet the fire safe standards for commercial occupancy with wildland threat. You can't get equipment into a single access point when you have 90 vehicles exiting, not to mention cross traffic on Gold Hill Road. A 10,000-gallon public well will not meet the fire flow requirements for a 5,000 square foot event center, along with a 4,000 square foot residential occupancy. As proposed, this project will expose people and structures to significant risk of damage, injury, and worse. When mitigating the impact of a project, enforcement must be considered. Enforcement of the conditions of this project are highly unlikely. Planning Department is currently circumventing enforcement at public events and has misinterpreted codes. They are saying events advertised as concerts, they are calling background music. Commercial public events, they are calling private events. All of this at a significant loss to the county. It is for these reasons and the other reasons you will hear that this project and community centers like it have opponents in the North Auburn MAC, the Newcastle MAC, the Lincoln MAC, and the Granite Bay MAC. Opposition is clear, as evidenced by the signatures you will see on our petition. I hope you will listen to the residents that you represent. I hope you will require an environmental impact report, and I hope we will get the answer for how far that noise will carry in the foothills where we live. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Patricia Burke. I live in Newcastle, and I'm speaking in opposition to the application for a minor use permit by Gold Hill Gardens and Mr. Mike Carson. The applicant seeks to build an event center masquerading as a community center, 5 cottages that have now been reduced to 2, that may be occupied for as much as 30 days, now reduced to 1 week, a bed and breakfast facility out of his home on the property, and a nursery and garden tour spots. In Planning Director Michael Johnson's June 12th memo, he acknowledges that there is no language in the county code that supports this application and further calls it a mischaracterization of the proposed uses as being community-oriented. Mr. Johnson then attempts to make a comparison of the proposed facilities to the Flower Farm in Loomis and the Newcastle Wedding Gardens in Newcastle. Granted, the Gold Hill Gardens application is at least as ambitious as the Flower Farm, but with a major difference: location. The examples cited by Mr. Johnson are both on major thoroughfares, Auburn Folsom Road and Highway 193. Gold Hill Gardens is planned for a rural road, unlit and with ditches for shoulders, and totally unsuited for what I characterize as a resort, which is not a permitted use in this zone. The Rural Lincoln MAC has recommended that this project, as proposed, be denied. The Newcastle Ophir MAC has not endorsed this project. Planning commissioners, it is within your authority to deny this minor use permit and similar ones going forward until the zoning code can be amended with appropriate definitions and safeguards so that community centers, as we all understand them, remain just that, community centers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carol Rubin. I'm also from Newcastle. I'm presenting you with more than 140 signatures from Placer County citizens opposing the Gold Hill Gardens minor use permit. And I also want to correct an impression here. The mention of 60 events in a 5-month period is just for phase 1 of this proposed permit. Once phase 3 is completed, the applicant, who will correct me if I'm wrong, states that events can be held 365 days year-round. I think it's a safe assumption that all of us are here because we care about the future of Placer County. One big factor shaping that future is the attention we pay to land use planning. The Gold Hill Gardens project represents a key determinant of Placer County's future, both in its own right and because your decision today will set a precedent for future commercial community center applications. The planned uses for Gold Hill Gardens fall under the zoning definitions for a meeting hall and a restaurant/bar. However, neither of these uses is permitted in the farm zone and with good reason. These are commercial, for-profit enterprises appealing to a transient, non-local clientele that properly belong in commercial zoning in or near Placer foothill communities. Calling them community centers is a flagrant misuse of a poorly written definition in the Placer Code. Even the planning director has acknowledged that these facilities are private event centers, not true community centers. Yet the applicant proposes, with the support of Placer Planning Services, that merely by relabeling this facility a community center, now these commercial events with no agricultural basis are appropriate for a remote, rural location poorly served by necessary infrastructure. Placer Planning staff in the mitigated negative declaration on pages 6 and 21 characterize this community center as a suburban, not a rural use. As planners and as citizens who care about our county, we need to think very carefully before we allow suburban uses to encroach deeply into Placer farmlands, threatening both the agricultural heritage upon which Placer County prides itself and our Placer County foothill communities that depend upon these types of business for their own economic success. The Gold Hill Gardens minor use permit represents a fork in the road to rural Placer's future. The path of approval leads to suburbanization and uncontrolled growth. Surely the current situations in Lincoln and Elk Grove offer us ample warning of ill-considered growth. Denying this MUP gives us a chance to revise the definitions in the planner zoning ordinances and establish regulations and boundaries for these types of facilities, allowing Placer County to grow in a thoughtful, well-planned manner. Please deny this minor use permit for Gold Hill Gardens and all subsequent applications under this bogus community center designation until the code is amended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Teresa Cheney on Schindler Road in Newcastle, near the proposed Gold Hill Gardens. I'd like to first underscore everything Carol so well stated. These are my primary concerns, and just to a little bit clarify maybe some misunderstandings, is that the biggest, if you want to say fear tactics or whatever, the biggest concerns were really not so much expressed about even the local impacts of this one particular project. I think the biggest concerns I heard from my neighbors, that some of them are way, way tucked away from Mr. Carson's project, is the fact that approval of this is going to totally erode the zoning. It's absolutely incompatible. It's a commercial project for profit. It's being compared to Grange Halls, which are nonprofit for the local community. It's being compared to the Flower Farm, which is on Auburn Folsom Road and has city water, by the way, which now we're looking at local groundwater aquifers that are a big concern to us, not to mention the 2 salmon habitat creeks that are very near the property. It seems a concern to all of these citizens that there has been a shoehorning of this commercial endeavor, clearly. Now, for me, he says, oh, they just don't want any change at all. Frankly, I embrace any change, and I support any change that's within the intent of FBX 10 zoning. And that would include a retail nursery, it's agricultural, and that would include a bulb farm or a farm stand or a garden tour. I understand all those. This event center, being considered a community center, is more than a misnomer, and the county's efforts to shoehorn this in, fitting a square peg into a round loophole, is what these folks are doing. And they're making every variance and every provision and every minor deviation and let's turn a blind eye to this that's in the code. I'm okay with adopting those things that help protect the beautiful, unique quality of a rural agricultural area. You start to get enough of these commercial endeavors back to back, there is nothing in this little loophole having to do with community centers that talks about the saturation point. His neighbor can do it, her neighbor can do it, the neighbors can do it all along Gold Hill. What do we have? We have a commercial zone. Plus, people can buy relatively inexpensive agricultural land and turn it into a commercial development and then abandon it, not even live on it if they want. I mean, this is the current bed and breakfast requires a resident to live on this property, and I'm concerned about this event center that's redefining exactly how agricultural land use is going to suffer in the future, where are the 4-H kids going to go, where are the folks who want to have cows, who want to have livestock. Pretty soon, the smells of your livestock are interfering with my wedding. It is a threat to the entire complexion of the intent of the FBX 10 zoning. And this is why, this is not a scare tactic, this is a red flag for the county to take a strong look at this weak language.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Stanley. I'm from Auburn, California. And I just want to explain a little bit about my background. I just built a home about 8 years ago in Auburn, and I'm originally from the Bay Area. And many times I've driven up 80 to go to the ski resorts up there and enjoy the Lake Tahoe, but I didn't know anything about Auburn or Placer County. And then as I was driving along, every once in a while I noticed this beautiful little town, Old Town Auburn, and Auburn itself, and I decided I ought to visit that place. So I turned off the road and I enjoyed the town area. And I decided, boy, this would be a great place to live someday. So I built a home about 8 years ago there, and then after 8 years of building the home and getting to enjoy the community, I started to go off and see just what's around Auburn. And I couldn't believe how beautiful the foothills are here in the Sierras. You have the variety of the forest and the rolling hills and vineyards. I didn't even know there were vineyards in Placer County. And I was just amazed at what there is in this county. But I had no idea about what was here until I decided to see the area. Now, what's happening at Gold Hill is a unique opportunity for people like me that have never experienced this area to see just how gorgeous it is. In my mind, it's more beautiful than the surrounding area of the Bay Area, and I thought that was nice. So the variety of the vineyards and the forest and the rolling hills are a big asset to this county, and I think people want to know about that. So I think this is a free opportunity for the county to be inviting people to see this gorgeous area. And hopefully, I mean, I've seen the value of my home go down, but hopefully in the future, the value of this county area is going to go up. And this is an opportunity for us to see that happen. And it's going to take time, but I hope it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Robin Rutschwig, and I live in rural Placer County outside of Lincoln. And I would just like to say that I am in support of this project. I think that it would be a valuable asset to the community and the surrounding areas, and I look forward to it. And the other thing I would like to say that I've known the Carsons for 20 years, and I would like to vouch for their integrity and know that they do not cut corners, and I know that this project of theirs will be kept up and increase our property values. So thank you. I'm in support of it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joe Voiles, or Joseph Voiles. I live on Gold Hill Road across from Mike, and he's been a good neighbor, him and his wife, and I have no complaints. I've known him since he's been there, and I'm sure that he will continue to improve the community. And as far as the traffic goes, we have tour buses going to the wine tasting place down the road a ways, going by our house, and I think that he will be an improvement for our property, everything he does, and I hope you pass it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Penny Kessler, and I live in South Auburn, and I've known the Carsons for about 15 years, and I just want to challenge the fact or the statements that have been made that their land isn't an agricultural piece of property. My son and their son went through elementary school together, and that's where a whole generation of St. Joseph children learned to bottle feed cows, and you know, Cindy used to churn her own butter, and they used to see that. And my son is now a bull rider and a cowboy, and it's a lot attributed to that piece of property that all those children spend a lot of time on around the cows and things like that. So I wanted to challenge that and give you my impression of that. And then a second thing, a year ago, I had my family want to come to Northern California, some from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and from San Diego, to do a family reunion, and they had heard so much about the wine country up here and the wineries of this area, of the Gold Country area. And we couldn't find enough places, number one, to host a family dinner, except at a hotel, you know, in a room in a hotel, or have them stay. And it would have been such a nice thing to be able to have a small family dinner in that environment there, so they can really get the flavor of this area, which is so beautiful. And I think if we're going to be supporting the wine industry, which I'm thankful that we're doing, I think it's a wonderful thing, it would be nice for them to be able to have the environment for them to either gather families or gather community as well as stay. So I would be in very much a support of this project. And I've known the Carsons, like I said, for 15 years. High level of integrity and very conscientious is all I've known from them. So I echoed the other people that were in support of them also. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Barron, and I actually own a wedding gardens. I've been doing weddings now for over 25 years. My wife's been doing them for almost 40. We went through all of this. The name of our business is Newcastle Wedding Gardens. We're on Taylor Road, which used to be the original highway to Tahoe, as we all know, Highway 40. One of my concerns, I just found out about this project, and why I'm here is that in our industry, our wedding industry, I'm concerned about the Carsons' experience with weddings, with running a hotel. If you're running cottages, bed and breakfast, customer service, you know, it's important, I believe, to have professionalism behind you in the industry that you're going to present to a community, especially something as rural as this. We're in a rural setting, but we're also on a major thoroughway in that, so that's not an issue. From what I understand, I haven't been out to the property, and I'm not opposed of a person, once again, starting a business, but I am concerned about experience. I'm concerned about my neighbors. When we went through this, we had one opposition, okay? It looks like there might be a whole room or part of a room in that. If that would have been our issue, where we currently were, we would have not gone through with it. We wouldn't have. Because I think it's important to have your support of your neighbors, especially when you're in this type of situation. And I'm here for support as far as the community and offering any expertise that might be questioned as far as a current facility that is successful. We've been there for over 10 years. We started out doing ceremonies only. In fact, before we did that, they were doing ceremonies only. That was why we bought the facility. And through time, we worked up from a bed and breakfast to ceremonies only, reception. So I'm only asking that you guys take a deeper look. I believe the environmental issue is very important. And once again, as far as on an expert's opinion, I'm available for any of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Susan Ames. I'm a close neighbor of this site. I have a lot of issues with it for a lot of reasons, but the one that hasn't been addressed, and it wasn't addressed in the mitigation study, is the effect on property values. I had my own appraisal corporation in Los Angeles for 17 years. I worked with Fannie Mae's chief appraiser, Wells Fargo's chief appraiser, among others, on feasibility studies for just this kind of issue, the effect of commercial retail on residential property values. And I can tell you, in every single case, in every single appraisal I did, in every single appraisal I reviewed, the proximity of any kind of retail, commercial, industrial use on a residential property is negative. The degree, of course, is based on property values, but in every single case there is a negative effect, and there is no mitigation for that unless Mr. Carson wants to volunteer to make up the difference in the property values out of his pocket. That should be an important issue because it's going to affect an awful lot of properties, may even affect the tax base, the income to the county from this. So despite what that lady said, there is not going to be an increase in property values from this project. I think the rights of the property owners under the current zoning should be considered as a primary factor in whether this is granted or denied. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Frank Wegener. I'm a 34-year resident on Fruitvale Road in Newcastle. We are somewhat familiar with the road qualities and usage in the rural area. We normally contact the California Highway Patrol for code enforcement on the road. In one 2-day session, we had 60 violations issued at speeds at 20 over posted mark. One was over 45 miles an hour over posted mark, which is, by the way, a felony. The CHP, I don't know if they're in this room to basically support how the roads are used in the area. I know there's been a road analysis, which I believe is a 24-hour analysis. The roads we're using for here would be like an hour and a half usage of 90 cars. And I know somebody's going to be counting the cars. I mean, we would know that. The one thing which I sent to you with a letter in July the 24th is about the bicycle traffic. On the Saturday before the 24th, there was 130 bicycles traveling eastbound on Fruitvale Road. They use Gold Hill. Okay, there's no bike lanes, there's no shoulders, there's ditches. Okay, so nobody has addressed the rural use of the roads, which is bicycle clubs. Okay, so on the Fruitvale Road issue, using more than 90 cars over a 2-hour period would be beyond offensive. It would be dangerous. The other thing I happen to do is I happen to start the fire department. In 1980, the Fruitvale Fire Department. And I was a firefighter and a captain in the Fruitvale Gold Hill Range area for 15 years, going on hundreds of calls of vehicle accidents, rural fires, structure fires on Schindler, Gold Hill, Fruitvale, the whole combined area. You don't understand what the fire service is in that area. 1 engine, 2 people on Wise Road. That's the fire service covering 95 square miles. Folks, that's not a good coverage, okay? You got 90 vehicles in there, you got an incident, people are trying to exit, forget it. If the engine's basically on Highway 65 doing an extrication, the next engine comes out of Auburn. You don't have fire protection, okay? So think about that. The last thing is, being a state licensed professional engineer, I deal with acoustics all day. Somebody says that I can do a simulation of 200 cowboys at a wedding at 10 o'clock at night. I would like to see the study. I would like to see the engineering associated with the study. And I'd like to see somebody's PE stamp saying that that's what the reality is going to be. Your premises are wrong, therefore the conclusion that this thing should go forward is wrong. You've got to go to an EIR, and the folks here are going to force an EIR, and hopefully you will grant that wish also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Hi, my name is Lori Udall, and I'm proud to say that my husband and I are new residents to Placer County. We moved here
3 months ago, we live in Newcastle on Virginia Town Road after spending over 30 years in the Bay Area. My husband and I spent over 2 years researching the area where we were going to make what we thought was going to be our future and final home. The two other areas we considered other than here were Napa-Sonoma area and the Paso Robles area, both of which are renowned wine country areas, and both of which the property values there were so extreme that we couldn't relocate there. We chose this area because we saw this as the opportunity to build a home in a lovely area that had the opportunity also for our property values to increase. It had the wineries, the culture, the art, and the lovely community. I believe that this development is consistent with the wineries. We were thrilled to be on the wine trail. In fact, the very first week that we moved here, even though we were in the midst of moving in, we went out and became members of our two closest wineries, and we have attended several events at each of the wineries, none of which ever caused an issue with traffic. I believe this is a responsible development in our area, and again, will help to add to our future value of the community, both culturally and property values. I hope you support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron Roth, and I live just across the creek, just across Auburn Ravine Creek from Gold Hill Mobile Home Park, right next to the bridge, Auburn Ravine Bridge. I have actually timed or followed large pickups and 30-foot trailers, hauling 30-foot trailers, crossing that bridge at over 50 miles an hour. I have seen 3 times big pickups stopping and yelling at bicyclists because they're in my road. I happen to be a bicyclist, and I happen to hike too. I love the area. I like what's going on. I went to Nantucket a few years ago with my family, and it was a lovely place with a good blend of development and roads and just a lot of crafts, artsy crafts things, petting farms, petting zoos, wineries, Christmas tree farm. Of course, there's one at the end of Gold Hill Road. It's really neat if we can have something like that. The thing that concerns me is that there are some people that think, well, we live in a rural area, we can do whatever we want, we can go however fast we want, we don't care about anybody else. And I like to see some development so that the county will come in, look at the whole area, and just at least put some control on things. I'm totally in favor of this because of the landscaping. I've been on Mike's property. I've seen it. He does a very good job. I like nurseries. I'm thinking of a little bulb farm myself. But this is a good opportunity for the county to develop and to have some control and develop it nicely for the area. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Elaine Lowe. I live within 300 feet of this development. I've been here for 42 years. I came to be in the country. If I wanted to stay in the city, I'd have stayed there, but I didn't. I have cows, and I would like to continue to have those and not have to worry about what's going to happen across the street from me. Bed and breakfast, I think I could put up with, but to have that many cars go across the front of my property just horrifies me. I already have trouble, and this is just not even going, I don't know what they're going to, but for years I have trouble in front of my house because it's a slight curve, and they do not make that curve in the middle of the night. They end up on my lawn. The closest one came within about 10 feet of my house. Most of them end up out in the circle, break the sprinklers, and then before cell phones, they come and knock on my door and want to use the phone, and it would scare me to death. Now they have cell phones, so they don't have to do that. But I know what's going to happen when we are having parties across the street on this narrow road that is not straight, it's curvy, it is not meant for that kind of traffic. I'm also concerned about the well. My well's only 65 feet deep, and then is he going to use all my water when he gets increasing the water usage across the street? So I think that's something that needs to be concerned. This does not fit on this road. It fits on 193. It would fit on Auburn Folsom Road, as the other one does, in a commercial area, but this is agriculture, and we need to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Lewis, Weiss Road. I'm in opposition of this project for several reasons. I have a feeling, my feeling from the county's viewpoint is they've manipulated the requirements for a proposal this way with, what do they call that? Where you buy, you're supposed to protect the trees, but you buy so much, or you donate to build other trees. I think in reading this project, the whole project has been manipulated in order to fit into Mr. Carson's project. I'm offended that the people that are for this project admit coming from the city for the quiet, but they're bringing the city with them. What we're trying to do is protect that, so 5 years from now when somebody else comes up from San Francisco, it's equally as quiet. My concern is people that have been here for a long time are familiar with the sounds of the county. This is not a sound of the county. I have a winery 800 feet from my place that she's finally in compliance, but it had to go to court. My concern is for the enforcement of what the county says they're going to do. I encountered this when I had a problem with the winery. In Ms. Jackson's report, the solution for the noise problem was for the applicant to work with the neighbors. That's a dream. We're already upset about this proposal. His inability to compromise, he talks about the public meetings. Well, he brought up he wanted to sell coffee. Well, then we said, well, that's retail. So then he came up with, well, then I'll do a nursery. Well, then I'll do this. It is a liquid concept that the county goes with. It hasn't given us any security that our rights are protected. It feels like the county is pushing this through without thinking properly of the consequences for the people that have been in the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Phil Avery, Gold Hill Road. You know, first of all, he made a statement early about how he went around to the neighbors and notified everybody. Well, I live probably a little over a quarter of a mile away from him. And we missed the first 3 meetings because we were never notified about anything other than some nice neighbors that began to tell us about this project. But first of all, I live next to Gold Hill Grange, and there is no regulation there. They come in and they have their parties, and they run 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and the noise that they put out vibrates our house, and nothing's ever done about it. They fill their parking lot up. They parking out on Gold Hill Road. It's a disaster. Tuesday, me and my wife came off of Baxter Grade. Come down in front of his property. There was a full-size pickup, had pulled out of the northbound lane, over in to read his sign. We couldn't get by because there was another car coming around a blind curve that's right there in front of his property. Now, you're talking 3 vehicles, and we had to sit there and wait. I'm concerned about the water. I'm concerned about the sewage. I'm concerned about the noise. I guess I'm concerned about everything. I think you need to turn it down. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Dan Brown, and one thing I don't like is they keep throwing that number of 200 people. Well, that's 200 guests, but the support people, I've been to these things, and the band members, a couple of them coming late. They got to get some new strings, cater, ice cream, flowers. These people just back and forth, even people visiting just to see where the place is. And then a driver is not a driver. They're not comparable. These people that drive these roads every day, they know each turn. Literally every one of these people are going to be lost on the way in. And we get behind them, and they're breaking it all the way down 193, break in, stop in, turn in, don't turn in. That's in the daylight, and they're on the wrong side of the road. We've all seen it every time when you're coming home. At nighttime, I tell you, when I even go to past my house, which I don't go, I don't know those roads, and I don't even drive that well, because you can't tell when the stops, curves, all that. These guys are going to come out drunk. Probably 20% of them will be drunk, and they're driving these roads lost. And then one other thing is, I'm really impressed with the county on the staff support. They've done an excellent job, except they should do the same. They should give us the equal amount to the public to support them. I don't see like all that backup support for the local citizens to voice this. I just see the developer getting all the lip service. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Downs, I live on Gold Hill Road. This won't take long because I didn't know much about this until recently. I don't get the feeling, this gentleman says that he was all over talking to the neighbors. The only thing I heard about is what I heard here today. Most of us just come from conversation. I didn't see any outreach on this whatsoever. My concerns mostly would be the road. There's a lot of driveways off of that 190 or Gold Hill Road, and it's just not set up for an awful lot of stuff, a lot of extra traffic. You've got a lot of things that many driveways that come right out into tight turns. So I would ask that you take a good long look. Don't make any decisions because it looks like this is already a done deal, but I'm surprised as many people here as there are, considering there's very little outreach done by anybody. So I would request that you take a longer look at this before you make any final decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Or is it afternoon? I'm Joanne Neft. I live in Auburn, California, and some of you might know that I've been involved working with agriculture in Placer County now for 25 years. And basically, I've been always promoting agritourism because that's what farmers markets are. And I, by the way, was the founding manager of the farmers markets in Placer County. I also am a founder of the Mandarin Festival in Placer County. And I also had the first bed and breakfast in Placer County, which is curious probably to you. It was a long time ago, and at that time they didn't even have an ordinance for bed and breakfast, so I helped write it. Just because I was the 11th one in the state. I am totally in support of agritourism. You know that. It's the way I lead my life. I walk the walk. And I understand that the county also is in support of agritourism. For those of you who might not know, and I did bring extra copies, the Placer County Board of Supervisors has just approved something called the Food System Charter for the Sacramento metropolitan area. And I have copies for you, but I'm going to read this. Therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors of the County of Placer, that to promote a secure, equitable, accessible, healthful, sustainable, and local food system, we will, and then it lists 10 items, number 4 of which, promote the preservation of local agricultural lands through supporting urban and rural agriculture, farmers markets, farm stands, and agritourism, and also to support events and educational activities highlighting the region's diverse and multicultural food traditions. Also in today's mail came a UC Davis extension invitation to learn about agritourism development, selling the experience, supporting the farm. I think we should take a 40,000-mile look at Placer County as a whole. I think this needs to have some discussion. I think perhaps our ordinances and I have not been updated enough. We're a little wishy-washy. I think we should really look at making some very clearly well-written guidelines to promote agritourism in Placer County. They don't really exist right now. And I think in order for us to provide the service that we want to provide, I think the man who was just in Nantucket, talked about Nantucket, is right on. But we need to update our general plan. We need to update the segment as it refers to agritourism.
Thank you.
She used to sit here on one of these seats.
I'm not a very public speaker, so just bear with me. My husband and I came up here to Placer County. We've been here 55 years. We didn't have a penny. We went to Hart Federal. Some of you may remember that bank. And they sent someone out to interview us. And he said, give them the money, let them have the rent. They look like they're hard-working people. And we've made it. And I'm past president of the Cattle Women. We tried to give back to our community. My husband worked for 20 years for Sierra College. He taught horsemanship. And to do this to us is just awful, because we have such a good community. These are good neighbors, and this is just going to be chaos for us and ruin our whole way of life. And I was always so proud of Placer County to give us a chance, but this is not good. And please, please, turn it down for us.
Pardon me, ma'am, would you tell us your name, please?
Carol Owens.
Thank you.
My name is Virgil Buckner. I live at 2100 Gold Hill Road. That's catty-cornered across from the project. It's a 200 event center that he's proposing to build, and that's 200 people. Really? I mean, we don't need 200 people across the street from my house carrying on till 10 o'clock, and that's when the music stops. But I've got some concerns, and this community center, it's called a community center. It's not for our local community. I mean, if I want to have a wedding, I have a beautiful piece of property. I'm right across the street. It's very beautiful there. I understand the reasoning behind it. It's a good place to live, and I like to live there. But one wedding, or you might have a couple of daughters, 1 or 2 weddings a year or something is reasonable. What they're talking about here is not reasonable in my mind. It's too much. It's just too much. I don't think it's for local residents. I think it's built to attract someone from the outside in. It's not really what I think that is zoned for or why it's there. It's not serving the purpose. Some of my questions, I wondered, are there going to be sound walls? Is there going to be security necessary for this? If you have 200 people there that are drinking, there's security issues. The after-hour noise, if it ends at 10 o'clock, that means people would be trickling out and going out and honking their car alarms to open their doors, setting off car alarms, slamming doors. There's headlights, there's noise, there's all kinds of issues that happen in the parking lot. If something goes wrong and there's a fight in the parking lot, I mean, all these things, they do happen, and I'm concerned. I don't want it across the street from me. It's not a good thing for me and my family. Safety issues. Fire, I think it's kind of been addressed already, the difficulties that we face with our volunteer fire department there. It's not manned. I mean, the people have to be called from home to come in. It's an issue. And then we have police. My kids are coming home directly opposing those 100 visitors that would be at his house driving that may have drank, and that concerns me. If something happens to one of my kids, and that's my life, like there's too much at risk here, is what I'm saying, for what might be benefited. Traffic on weekends, there's not that much on Gold Hill. I'm concerned about the salmon. I don't know if that's a major concern or not. I hope they take that into concern, because it's a salmon thing, and we don't want to lose that. How often will there be events? I think it's been addressed. Is the applicant always going to be present there? If there's complaints, who does it go to? I don't think it's appropriate for the area. I think it looks to me like a hotel, a bar, a commercial hall for profit. They threw a nursery in there to put lipstick on a pig. A pig by any other name, would it smell as sweet? I believe it would. The project, I think, puts my lifestyle at risk. It changes the sounds. It changes the smells. The whole look of the neighborhood. You're bringing the city to us. You're opening a floodgate, and I ask for an EIR. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
She looks familiar.
Good afternoon. I'm Christine Turner, and I'm here on behalf of the Placer County Farm Bureau Board of Directors. The Farm Bureau Board of Directors discussed this proposed project at their August meeting. Several board members have received calls from Placer County citizens opposed to the proposed event center based on a litany of concerns of which you've already heard. The project site is zoned as farmland. The Placer County General's Plan agricultural element has some goals that the Farm Bureau Board of Directors finds inconsistent with this proposed project. Specifically, although Farm Bureau has and does support concepts of agritourism, it is a moving target exactly what that means and what kind of parameters are appropriate for agritourism. What I'm gathering from having listened to the 20-plus people who have testified today is that the big concern seems to center around the event center itself, not the proposed bed and breakfast part of this project. I think one of the things that a lot of people have recognized is that there is certainly a value to being able to bring people onto farms and ranches and have them be able to experience that rural lifestyle of farming and ranching community. However, when you start to open it up to just large events, you obviously have people who are very concerned about a number of issues. The county agricultural land use says that the county shall facilitate agricultural production by allowing agricultural services, i.e. commercial and industrial uses, to locate in agriculturally designated areas if they relate to the primary agricultural activity of the area. The county shall analyze whether the use supports local production and is compatible with existing agricultural activities and residential uses in the area. It appears to me that there's nothing about the event center portion of this project that enhances this gentleman's cattle operation. It is questionable whether even the bed and breakfast really enhances his agricultural operation. However, in support of agritourism, I think that if the project is modified to eliminate the event center and can focus on agritourism related to having people come to the property and be able to stay there, is an entirely different than project. And at this point, the Farm Bureau Board of Directors does not support the project as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Come on up, please.
Hi, my name is Victoria Buckner, and I live at 2100 Gold Hill Road, very near the project. Our home is actually quite close to the road, so the traffic and the noise are a very big impact to us. I've read the negative declaration mitigation measures over and over, and it just upsets me more and more to think that these mitigations that are brought forward, they're just to appease the planning situation and not the neighbors. I feel that all of these impacts are significant to us. I don't think that any of this, any of these things are of no impact, specifically the urban decay or deterioration that's towards the end of it. I think it's X number 8 or something. This is a rural area, and of course there's no impact on the as regard to urban decay because it's not an urban area. But if you bring this to us, it's creating an urban area which will eventually cause a decay and all of the crime deterioration that comes with it. The traffic, the noise, all of those things affect all of us neighbors. I'm not here to say anything negative about Mr. Carson. He's a good person and a good neighbor, but I just don't believe that the project, specifically the event center, is a good idea for our area, and I support all of our neighbors who are against it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matthew Whitley. I live nearby. I just have a question as far as there are a lot of wineries that have opened up and are opening up. So once this changes and you've taken an agriculture area and you've allowed commercial business, does that mean that all the wineries now can have events and weddings and parties with noise all year long? I'm just wondering about what this is going to change for the whole area, because there's a lot of wineries around that will start to do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Kevin Kemper, and I am here on behalf of the project applicant. And I just wanted to respond to a couple of issues that have come up during the public hearing. I don't want to reiterate what's in the staff report or anything. I want to focus on the definition of community center that's in the zoning code. There's been a lot of attention given to concerns that this is a quote-unquote commercial use and that it's inappropriate in the farm zone. And we recognize that this property is in the farm zone. This is a compatible use. And I think we can talk about general policies and the general plan related to promotion of agriculture and compatibility of use and so forth. But I think that we need to also deal with the specific provisions of the zoning code that pertain to the uses that are allowed in the farm zone. And one of those is the community center. And I think we need to focus on the definition of a community center in the code, and that's as follows. In the zoning code, a community center is defined as a multi-purpose meeting and recreational facility, typically consisting of one or more meeting or multi-purpose room, kitchen and or outdoor barbecue facilities that are available for use by various groups such as activities as meetings, parties, weddings, receptions, dances, including Grange Halls. That's the type of project we're talking about here. We're not talking about a hotel. We're not speaking of a restaurant or a bar or some intensive type of urban use that would clearly be inappropriate in this zone. This is a project that will be in support of agritourism, as has been discussed, and it clearly fits within this definition. The noise impacts have been studied. We have our noise consultant here, but basically they went out and put noise monitoring equipment on various sensitive receptor locations surrounding the project site and turned up amplified music at the location of the event at the decibel level that would occur during an event, and noise levels are less than significant. Traffic, there's plenty of capacity on Gold Hill Road for this, and the safety concerns have been addressed in the study. And I would just ask, as you probably have, to consider all the documentation and analysis that's been prepared as you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from public like to speak?
Yes, my name is McVarish. I live a couple of doors away on Schindler from this project, and I just heard the fellow in this suit speak, and he apparently doesn't live in the area. We can hear noise at our place when they have a pool party for their kids. Their kids are grown now. Nobody said anything about pool parties because it was for the kids. Their sound guy, Mike, came to my driveway and said, "Hey, I got a sound guy here, and he wants to walk up there and put a thing, and they're going to turn up the music. We're going to find out what the sound is." I said, "You don't mind if I stand here?" And he said, "No." So he put it up next to my house, and they turned it up to, I don't know, the sound guy'd have to tell you. You know what? Couldn't hear a damn thing. So if I can hear them at the pool, and that's where the event center is going to be, why couldn't I hear the sound. Something's wrong with the way they did the system. The other thing is the event center, a community event center. This isn't for the community. This is to bring people in from the outside. We have community centers. We have 3 of them right in our area. My boy got married at one. Some of these other people's children have been married at them. This is strictly a commercial motel that wants to have parties. And if the event center is the plan around this thing, and this is what the wineries are going to circle around to get this, and they need to look at the winery ordinance and the event center ordinance and do something about them. They shouldn't allow this commercial venture around all us rural neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. And if there's nobody else that wants to speak, we'll close off the public comment portion of this. And Mr. Carson, would you like to?
Thank you. I forgot I ought to have a petition that was signed. And then I have a couple of affidavits for postings. So I forgot to put those up too. I don't think I really had any other comments, but if you have any questions of me, I'll make myself available.
Maybe one, because I see in here, one of the speakers brought up the 3 phases, and so I see in phase 1, that you're only open April 15th through October 15th, and you're not to exceed 59 calendar days a year, and this is for the event center, so it doesn't matter if it's phase 3. The only thing where you can have more people on the property is just for the bed and breakfast portion.
Correct. Well, ultimately with phase 2, when the building is constructed, then we would be open year-round.
For the event center?
Yes. Yeah, the primary reason for the seasonal use in phase 1 is that we wouldn't have a building to accommodate people if it's raining. And also the 59 number is a result of water usage in I think it's the state code. If you have more than 25 people for more than 60 days in a calendar year, you have to have a public well. It's not a commercial well, it's just a public well that requires different seals and encasements in the actual construction of the well, and it also requires additional testing for groundwater testing, just as far as chemical breakdown and that kind of stuff. So that's where the 59 days came from. It's as a result of the need for a public well if you go beyond that.
Okay.
Couple of questions or comments that maybe you could address for me. The 200 guests, and then we heard somebody bring up the point of plus catering staff and what have you. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're looking at, is the 200 plus the support?
Yes.
And any idea on what that number might turn into?
Yes, I believe that the number that was in the staff report was like 18 people, counting employees and catering and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. And then how about security?
Well, we'll be on the premises, so I'm not really sure what you need for security. I'm not really sure what the security concern is.
Anything that would really, like a fight breaking out or something like that, or?
Well, I guess we could entertain trying to get security if they needed it, but how many weddings have you been to where there's been a fight breakout?
Okay.
Or, weddings are typically celebrations. They're not parties. They're family and friends getting together. It's not like it's a bachelor party or something like that. So.
Any other comments?
Lucy, I'd like to, you say you have a sound person here?
Yes.
And give us some background on the test and what it really includes and what it said?
Yes.
John?
Good afternoon, chair members. My name is John Lopez with Ballard Acoustical Consultants. Do you have specific questions on the testing that was conducted?
Well, we just heard some comment that that one of the neighbors could hear the kids in the pool.
Okay.
But when the sound test happened, you couldn't. I mean, you couldn't hear anything. And I know oftentimes sound raises easier than it goes down. At least that's been my impression over time. So maybe just give some background on why you'd hear it in the pool but not in the sound test, or some. I mean, that's just kind of maybe a little bit more detailed than that.
Well,
but just
the specific test. I didn't mean to cut you off. During the it was a simulation, so we had 2 loudspeakers, amplified loudspeakers, set side by side. We had a reference level noise meter set about 75 feet away from the speakers, and let me just double check that. 75 feet away, and the level was 75 dB. So the way we conducted the test is that we had one person stationed next to the music that was playing, and we had the other 2 guys, myself and Mr. Ballard, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. We went around at all the nearest noise-sensitive locations. I think it was about 10, 11 receptor locations. We went to each location, and we radioed in to go ahead and start playing music again, and we took notes. We recorded noise levels to see, if there, I guess what the levels were at each location. At each of the locations, as documented in the report, what usually was what caused any kind of elevated levels was traffic or farm animals. At some of the locations, the music was faint, but nowhere. At no location did the music noise level exceed the county's ordinance or the county's criteria for exceedances.
Does weather and proximity, like I talked about, if you live higher or lower, do those things have an effect on sound?
Yes. I guess that's exactly why we went to. We conducted the simulation to take the as much variables out of the equation as possible. What could have been done, I suppose, is just have a reference noise level. We have the distances, and we can project those noise levels at various distances. But we just, for situations like this, where it's going to have higher scrutiny, we'd like to go out and actually produce, generate a noise level, and then actually measure at various locations to verify. So we're not just relying on predictions, but we're relying on actual measured noise levels. Does that answer your question, sir?
I think so. I think there's variables that might affect it at different times. Wind direction. I don't know what they are really. I'm not an expert.
There's definitely. Huh? So go ahead.
Oh, okay. One question, maybe follow up. Directional, with these speakers and stuff. I mean, were they set where the band would be playing if it was outdoors, outside of the building, and or did you sort of aim at the directions that you're doing the sound test, so that way it's like a direct line where it's not something like you're doing. I'm aimed at you, but you're standing over there doing the sound test.
Yeah, it's documented within the report. The speakers are oriented, I believe, in the southeast direction. So there was directionality involved within the speaker. So if you're standing behind the speaker, if you're directed northwest of the speakers, it's going to be somewhat less than if you were to be southeast. But so the assumptions are laid out within the report that there were amplified speakers facing in the southeast direction, and the results in the report indicate that there was no impact. But I guess I understand there were directional speakers, and if it were a band, and I guess it would be omnidirectional, so maybe different conditions at that point.
Okay.
You said you played the music for your test at 75 dBs?
Yes.
Give me, what else makes 75, what else sounds like 75 dBs that I might be familiar with the noise level? Is that like a lawnmower, or what's 75 dBs?
Lawnmowers actually a lot louder.
Lawnmowers are up around 90 or 95.
I'm just kind of looking for a reference here.
Yeah. So I have just a table here provided within the report. We have normal conversation, 5 to 10 feet is about 60 dB. A commercial jet aircraft interior during flight is around 70 dB. So when you're sitting inside your traveling, it's about 70 dB. A diesel locomotive at 300 feet is about 80 dB. So they all have, when you reference a noise level, you also have to apply a reference distance, because without the reference distance, the noise level doesn't carry, doesn't mean anything, I suppose.
And so a band playing would typically play at 75 dBs at what did you say, 50 feet or whatever?
For the test, we discussed with Mr. Carson. We played the music that what we agreed would be an appropriate listening level, and it was, I guess, comparative to what you would have it at a wedding, essentially.
The conditions of approval also address this. We will be limited to having the speakers, volume of the speakers, and by the way, we're not proposing any bands. It's only, it's non-live music is what we're proposing. But the speakers will be regulated so that they cannot go above 75 decibels at that location, the back edge of the court, and we did set them exactly where we will be having any DJs will be limited to that location. So it's not like the speakers are going to be moved around to different locations for the DJ. They will have to stay in that area.
Just so I'm clear, so no live music?
No live music. Yeah, we are not proposing any live music. Yeah, the only amplified music would be through a DJ, and it will be done through a regulated speaker system that cannot be adjusted any higher. It'll be very clear in our contracts with everybody that those requirements will set. I have a sound meter, and they taught me how to do that, stand on that back corner, and it will not be above that. That's 75 decibels at that location, which I believe the county code allows us even more than that at the property lines, but we're well below that at the property lines. And the reason why the gentleman couldn't hear it when we went to his property is because when we do the pool, when we had pool parties and those kind of things with the kids talking and laughing and stuff, that's down at the pool. There's not shielded by anything. It's kind of on the edge, and it's very open towards the neighbors. Where we're having the activities is over on the basketball court area. It's very, very shielded by the buildings and the natural terrain and the topography. Some of you made it out to the property. I'd invite any of you guys to come out to the property. I would like you guys to come out to the property. It's in a very contained area.
Maybe just one more quick question while you're up there, Mr. Carson. How do we arrive, the hours of operation are 6 to 10?
No, I believe it's
11 to 10.
11:30. It's early afternoon till 10, yes.
Yeah, how did you arrive at those hours?
Just working with staff. We originally were thinking, for a wedding event, normally, especially during the seasonal portion of it, people don't typically have weddings in the heat of the day. So it's usually towards the tail end of the day. And so we initially were thinking late afternoon. And we originally wanted to go to 11 o'clock just because we added up the hours for a ceremony and dinner and dancing and to have people be there. And it equated out to 11 o'clock if you started around 4:30 or 5:30. But in working with staff, they because of the Placer County ordinance, it has a change in allowable noise decibels at 10 o'clock. So they wanted to limit it to 10 o'clock, and we agreed to that.
Okay, and that would be the music gets turned off?
Yeah, you shut the music off and start turning patrons away.
Okay. Another question, going back to days of operation and length of operation, I guess my understanding now, and I really didn't get it when I went through it the first time, that you're talking potentially 365 days a year. Say if you rented the building out, you could go every day and have an event at the community center. And I'm not saying that it's going to happen.
Okay, I understand.
That's what it is. Having said that, I do have a question for staff, because I remember, if I'm not mistaken, you know, for wineries and stuff, didn't we have some capping on times?
It's 6 or 12.
Number, it wasn't 365 days a year that they could do, you know, if they brought in 200 people, they could.
For the wineries, the special events permits allowed for 6 events per calendar year.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot less.
Yeah, that's a lot less, and I'm not saying that, you know, when you're building a special facility. I guess.
I'd like to remind everybody that just because the maximum is 200 doesn't mean that every event's going to have 200. We set the 200 limit by looking at what the surrounding other uses might be and tried to open ourselves to some additional market share. But most weddings, I would venture to say, are probably in the 100 to 150 range. So, you know, I don't know that it would make a difference, but we would certainly be entertain the concept of trying to limit maybe the number of 200 people events we could have per year. If that, you know, that'll obviously help with the traffic. So.
What are you saying, 200 events a year or 200 people?
The 200 people. It's the number of people
There's
that's
200
the issue.
people, but the way it is in here, if you went all the way to phase 3 of this project, he has an event center where 200 people can come every single night.
Correct.
Of the year.
I mean, there's nothing that restricts it beyond that.
There's not a kind of restriction.
Yeah, that's
nothing, you know, for the benefit of the neighbors. And I definitely, as a business person, I definitely understand that, you know, there's a cost return ratio and everything where,
Sure.
you know, I mean, I'm not up here to say, hey, restrict it to 7 events, but, you know.
Well, I wouldn't mind
don't
working with
know
staff to
what
come up with
that
a
number is. I mean,
some.
People we get in,
Yeah. Open for discussion. Anybody else jump in?
You know, I'm thinking I'm hearing the same thing that you're hearing from a lot of the people here, is that the project needs some kind of a haircut. I don't know where to, you know, which ones to cut. And you're bringing up some possibilities that obviously would work for you, and I think maybe some of those suggestions could be listened to, because otherwise we're just kind of throwing up stuff to see what sticks. But from what I'm hearing from a majority of the people, don't have a problem with some portions of it, but the ambitiousness of the project as a whole is a little more than they're comfortable with in their neighborhood. And so, you know, maybe some suggestions or input from you as to where some of this could be dealt with would be beneficial.
I think, at least as a commissioner, from my standpoint, and sort of what I've gleaned from your neighbors and from the audience and stuff, is that they don't have an issue with the bed and breakfast portion of it. And if you just had the 2 cottages and you're doing the flowers and stuff, it's the event center, you know, that's where it is. And you know, I guess I am thinking there needs to be some kind of a cap that assures, because one comment came up that really, when I think of it going 365 days a year, then all of a sudden, you know, everybody else could come up with the same concept and, you know, be at the neighbors. And I think it needs to be something that is reasonable to, you know, where you.
I understand.
In farming, I mean, I hear out there, well, we're out here raising cattle and farming and everything, and they don't understand. It's all commercial enterprise. You know, there's some that live out there just to live and don't, you know, derive any income off their property. And I understand what you're trying to do, and that's a lot of the other people are doing, whether they're raising stock or plants or whatever it is that they're doing out there on the rural property. And I understand that, but you know, with the event center going that long, I think it's something definitely you need to come up with.
We had provided a kind of a schedule in talking with staff. We were talking about various kind of tiers for scheduling tiers for number of events and how many we could have in it, you know, based on occupancy, the number of people. I could provide that to you guys to share with you as a table form, if you'd like to see that.
Well, I think we're doing
Mr. Chair,
again.
if I may, if it is the pleasure of the commission, I don't think it's wise for the commission to try and craft and modify the project as a part of this hearing.
I agree.
If it is a pleasure of the commission, staff would recommend that you continue this off calendar to allow staff additional time to work with the applicant to address the issues that we have heard here today.
I think that's a good suggestion. There's more at stake here and more than can be reviewed, and the effects of what changes might be suggested can't be looked at close enough right here, right now,
I don't want to do
with the information we have.
Well, before we go any further, I'd like to still have a question while he was still standing up there.
By all means.
It seems to me that obviously most of the objection seems to be with the event center per se. And just asking you personally, what's more important to you? That the event center be open 365 days a year, or that the event center be, let's say, confined strictly to agricultural events, and then could be opened up for the full year, as opposed to general events where we put a cap on how many events you can have?
Sure. I think we could work with staff on that, absolutely. I would not see a problem with that. And I think also we could, you know, because I've heard the same comments. I've been sitting through these MAC meetings, and so I've been racking my brain, what can I do, what can I do? And everybody keeps bringing up 200 people, you know, 100 cars. And so my thought was, well, shoot, let's limit, because in reality, we're not going to get that many 200
It's not the
people
200
events.
people per se that I think bothers some people. It's the fact that there's 200 for 356 or 65, I should say.
Yeah, I would not have a problem with that. We can work with staff. I'm confident.
So it would be, just so I'm straight with you, which would be more important to you, to be able to be open all year and have all the events only respective to agriculture or agrotourism, or you open up a capped number of days and have events open to weddings and things that aren't intended to do tourists?
I would say capped, because anytime you're in business, you never want to cut your market share. And so, you know, we want to make sure that we're going to be able to provide the facilities for a broader range of people.
Okay.
So you know, it wouldn't make business sense to open it up to a limited group for a longer period of time as opposed to a larger group for a shorter period of time.
Mr. Chairman, I think what we're trying to get at is that it would probably be the best for the community and for you as well is to try to decide on some sort of a phasing program that fits your budget and sort of fits the community at the same time.
Okay.
I think I would encourage you to lean on the agricultural element of this project as you bring it back for reconsideration later, and I support staff's suggestion that we do that, because I think it's very difficult to negotiate these things in a public hearing. So I would certainly encourage you to recognize the feelings of the commission and the community as well, and try to figure out the issues, the parts of the project that need to go forward earlier, and maybe you don't need all the parking up front. You can save yourself some money and do things like that to mitigate some of the impact concerns. And then as time goes, do things, we'll come back and we'll add to it maybe at some later time, things that are compatible with the community and people like, and can, you know, sort of digest it as they go along, and they find out that it's not a bad thing. Fine. If it's worse than we thought, then we don't want to exacerbate it anymore. So at any rate, I think staff's suggesting that we put this back in your hands with the staff and see. They've heard the same comments we have, and they know how the commission feels pretty much. I think that's the next best step from my perspective. Thank you.
I have no problem with that. Thank you.
I'd like to make a, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment.
I'd like to ask another question before we get into it.
Go ahead.
Hold on, Rich has another question.
Yeah, Richard has one down there first.
Yeah, you know, I guess I'm troubled by all the comments about the traffic on Gold Hill Road. And so I'd like to hear a little bit more from engineering on, I guess, our analysis or how we arrived at the point that we did with the traffic surveys that we did.
We have a representative from Public Works in the audience, Amber Comboy. She can address any questions you might have.
She thought she was safe back there, too.
It did pretty well right up to the end.
Amber Conroy, Public Works.
You know, one of my questions from a traffic standpoint, when you do the traffic studies on that, I know you take into consideration with all the zoning and potential build out, because I know one comment was made with all the wineries and stuff there that it just keeps building up. But when you do your study and if you say, okay, his project comes in, with everything that's out there, it meets the standards. Am I correct? So
the traffic study was actually done by Ken Anderson, who's back there.
So
we reviewed it. Existing counts were performed, so he got what's currently out on the road. And then we have a traffic model that looks at future years. We were looking at 2025 traffic volumes. And that takes into account all of the zoning and approved uses. I mean, we can't have a crystal ball and, you know, maybe the winery over there is going to do this and maybe so-and-so is going to do that. But looking at the existing zoning and what we know, we have a model that'll predict what the traffic's going to be in the future year.
So just backing up for everybody's benefit out there, if he came in and his project busted that model for it to go through, then road improvements would have to go before his project could be approved.
Gold Hill Road can carry 4,200 vehicles a day without triggering a threshold as far as engineering is concerned. It currently carries 1,200. So in order for him and his project to trigger the threshold, there's 3,000 cars a day that need to show up from somewhere.
Oh, okay. Well,
just from the engineering and the county thresholds, it's just not going to trigger anything from the volume standpoint.
What about some of the other factors like, we heard comments, and I've been on Gold Hill Road. It does take some rather direct turns every once in a while, and it's it doesn't have it's ditches on the side, and so we're talking, and they are talking about people that are driving at nighttime, unfamiliar with the road.
Well,
does that figure into the analysis anyway?
The analysis looked at the potential travel routes. Gold Hill actually has center line and curve warning signs, and it's actually a better, gives you a lot more fair warning than some of the other roads in the area. I went out and drove for a couple hours. So it actually is better for something like this than, say, Bald Hill, which, good luck, I did it at night. It was terrifying. You guys are right about some of that. The thing with Gold Hill is that it actually carries less volume than most of the other roads in the area by fairly considerable amounts. Bald Hill has an extra 400 cars a day on it. So while I understand that it sounds like a huge amount of traffic compared to what's currently on the road, compared to what other roads carry or what that road can carry, it just isn't that much. Anything else?
What about other factors like the bicyclists, and besides the sharp turns, the bicyclists and stuff like that? Are other factors factored in other than straight traffic numbers?
The traffic report looked at volumes because that's what our thresholds are.
That's what you guys work on.
As far as cyclists, there's huge numbers of cyclists all over the county on much more heavily used roads than this one. We look at collisions. We have an in-house program where we look at collisions every year. We look at roadways and intersections and bikes and peds, and this road hasn't come up in any of those. So as far as we can tell, there's not an existing safety issue. I looked at what collisions are out there. I actually pulled up all of the reports, and I understand that maybe that's not all of them. People tend to pull themselves out of ditches and leave without police reports sometimes. There's very little on Gold Hill in general, and there's nothing near this project. So we can only go with our best information, and our best information says that there's nothing existing right now that's a problem.
Well, I'm off Virginia Town Road, and it's got the ups and downs and some really steep turns. And from bicyclists, there's a lot of bicyclists, more than Gold Hill.
Okay, well, you answered my question. Thank you, Ruth.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have a couple of comments before we make a motion to continue, if that's what we're going to do. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Carson for letting me on his property a couple of days ago. But I was like one of the other persons said, came down off of 193, and actually I pulled off because I thought I'd gone by Gold Hill, so he told me where his driveway was right after Schindler, so I found that one real quick because he told me, but that might be an issue for people that are coming for the first time. But we heard a lot today about agritourism and the Farm Bureau's comments, and also Joanne Neff. She called me yesterday, and I was able to go online and get the supervisor's memorandum, the one that she referenced here. So I read the whole thing about the Sacramento Region Food Center charter. It does talk all about grow local and buy local and eat local and all those good things, but it doesn't say anything about event centers being part of this resolution. So I'm not sure that event centers are part of this resolution here. It was mentioned that we all have, I think Mr. Carson said he has a lot of different functions already at his home, and I likewise, I live in the city of Roseville and even had a wedding at my house a few years ago. There was only 4 to 40 people there because I just have a small house, but from one of my daughters, and just recently had 29 people for one of my birthday parties. But so we're always going to have special events at our house, whether we have a permit or not. I mean, that's kind of a given if you have friends over or you have a lot of friends. But I think if you have an event center, and I know we're going to send this back for some wording, possibly on controls and what have you, but I'm not sure we're going to get much more new information, at least from my perspective, because we just heard that we put a heck of a limit on the wineries. It's only 6 a year. And so, I don't think Mr. Carson is going to put up with 6 a year if he's going to spend that kind of funds out there in the country. But so I think these are some of the issues that we're going to have to settle again, or at least look at again. And we did hear from 2 people that have event centers, and I haven't been to either one of those other event centers, but I knew where they were, and they're on major arterials. So I think that's a major thing, irrespective of the traffic engineer's comments here that this road's only has 1/3 the capacity or traffic that it can handle. It still's got a lot of curves in it, and me being unfamiliar with it the other day, of course I was in the middle of the day, so I had no trouble with it. But I think all these issues are going to need to be resolved before this project in its current state or some state can go forward. I'm in favor, or maybe I should say I'm in favor, but I don't think I heard many comments against either the bed and breakfast or actually even the small units there. And that's why I was asking this planning staff about this intensity. Well, I think 3 other housing units to get people in to experience the agricultural experience, I guess. Joanne Neff was talking to me on the phone yesterday. She's experienced, I believe, in New Zealand and elsewhere. The event center is not part of that agricultural experience. And, I mean, there may be several events out there that would have agricultural type overtones, but so I think those are a bunch of things that are going through my mind in this whole project. So I think the event center, of course, is a big one. Of course, staying away from the NID ditch and what have you are the other things too. But anyway, those are just some of the comments I'd like to make. I do want to thank Mr. Carson and also Joanne Neff and some of the others that have called me, and also all the people today. There was a lot more written correspondence that we received on this project than were even for and against that were presented today. But I want to thank everybody for coming out today.
Any other comments? Motion?
I just move that we turn it back over to planning to get with the applicant and come up with some time frames for the event center, something more.
Or how about just even a definition of the event
Yeah.
center that might work in this particular regard?
Second.
To clarify, your motion is to continue this matter off calendar, correct?
Right.
And just to be clear, staff will be re-noticing everybody who was noticed for this hearing at such time that this project is considered by the commission again.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So be it. Meeting adjourned.